hit subscribe. Subscribe to my guy, Uncle D. Tell him Big Bad sent you.
Spurling. I'm an attorney here in Houston, Texas, an advocate for black men, largely because I am a black man. I'm a black father, I have black sons. Hey man, I do what I do.
She washing collard green in the tub.
She washing.
She don't know that we don't trust.
We don't trust her.
She ain't even one of us. Washing green in the bathtub.
Nah.
She Indian, not one of us. Washing collard greens on the tub.
Yeah.
She washing collard green in the tub.
She washing collard greens.
She don't know that we don't trust. She ain't even one of us.
Not one of us.
Washing green in the bathtub.
Yeah.
She Indian, not one of us.
Not one of us.
Washing collard greens on the tub.
I know how to make a mean collard greens. In fact, people used to ask me to make greens for them for Christmas. One year, I had so many that I had to wash that we ended up washing them in the bathtub. So I am not playing around.
And I am not lying to you that I would make so many greens that I'd need to wash them in the bathtub. I'm telling you the truth.
She washing collard greens in the tub.
She washing.
She don't know that we don't trust.
We don't trust her.
She ain't even one of us.
Not one of
washing
us.
green in the bathtub.
Yeah.
She Indian, not one of us.
Not one
washing
of
collard
us.
greens on the tub.
Wash it with some dawn, let it flow. Put some dial on it, Doug butter soap. Give Doug a little dose, make it last. Collard green smelling just like ass. It's probably cause she get it from my mama. Not no FBA recipe, be honest. Sound like pretending you're an Indian. Cosplaying, you lying like you're innocent. TLC said, baby, no scrubs. Obama called us a bunch of thugs. But one thing about us I love, we ain't eat no greens from the tub. Hell no.
She washing collard green in the tub.
She washing.
She don't know that we don't trust.
We don't trust her.
She ain't even one of us.
Not one of
washing
us.
green in the bathtub.
Nah.
She Indian, not one of us. Washing collard greens on the tub. She washing collard green in the tub.
She washing collard greens.
She don't know that we don't trust. She ain't even one of us.
Not one of us.
Washing green in the bathtub. She Indian, not one of us.
Not one of us.
Washing collard greens on the tub.
Yeah.
People wash their ass in the tub. Kamala Harris. You don't know black person, black woman to spell black man worth his salt clean them goddamn greens in the tub. The most you do is clean that kitchen sink out, put a plug at the bottom, and then wash them greens in there. That's what you
Washing
do.
collard green in the tub.
And then after you wash them the
She don't
first
know that
time,
we
then
don't
what you
trust.
do is you take the little
She
middle
ain't even
vein
one
out of them
of
and tear
us.
them off from each
Washing
side,
green in the
and then you
bathtub.
clean them again
She Indian, not one
with
of
your
us.
nasty
Washing
self.
collard greens on
That's
the
how I
tub.
know you're faking it. That's how I know you're faking. That's how I know you're faking it. I spent all day clean. You didn't spend no goddamn all day clean no goddamn greens. Stop lying to me. I clean greens my damn self. My grandma had a garden in the backyard. I had to pick them goddamn greens. It was right next to that peach tree that she would pull a damn switch off and whoop my ass when I was out. Matter of fact, she'd send me back there to get the goddamn peach tree switch, and I better not come back with a small one. What's up? Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the broadcast. Shout out to everybody in the chat room. Y'all hit the number 1 button if you can hear me. Shout out to Big Bass Life, man. He has created some masterpieces, man. Shout out to everybody in the chat room, man. I hope you all are enjoying your day. I hope you're enjoying your night. I hope you're enjoying your evening, wherever you are, man. Y'all, as I always say, I certainly want to just say I appreciate you all for being here tonight. I hope you enjoy the entertainment. Big shout out to everybody who's contributing to the Super Chat, the Cash App, and the PayPal. Big shout out to Fire for Effect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being the first person to contribute to the Super Chat. Now, look, man, we're gonna do it. We got a lot to learn tonight. As you all know, I pride myself on being one of the people who focuses on teaching, because you'll remember these things that we talk about years to come. Some of the stuff, who married who, what superstar fell out with who had a baby by who, all that stuff is going to pass. But if I can help you learn something, I mean, you guys are getting university level education right here on YouTube, and I think that's the best use of this resource. But anyway, welcome to the broadcast. My name is Dennis Spurling, and tonight I want to have it. Well, can you all hear me? Can y'all hear me? Hit the number 1 button if you can hear me. Somebody says, does this include white people? Yes, actually, I have a very special segment dedicated to white people, white Americans in specific. I want you to hang around till the end, okay? I want all the white people to hang around till the end, because I have a special conversation set aside for you all. But first, I want to, again, just welcome everybody to this very serious conversation. And let me say this at the outset, so there's no confusion about what kind of broadcast this is going to be. This is not a Trump rally, okay? And this is not a personality discussion, and this is definitely not an emotional venting section. This is a conversation for people, and we're going to talk about power, we're going to talk about survival, and we're going to talk about responsibility. Whether you like Donald Trump or you can't stand him, it's irrelevant to what we're doing here tonight. Okay. What we see is that we have global alliances that are cracking, and we have old continents that are dragging new nations toward old grudges. And where careless words and unserious criticism and public self-sabotage are getting people unalive. And in that environment, the president of the United States, whoever he is, cannot be treated like a punchline. Shout out to Urban Eagle. Now, you don't have to worship the man, and you don't even have to like his style. You might think he's a criminal. You might think he's one of them Epstein boys, okay? You might think he's a cheater, an adulterer, whatever, a womanizer. But you don't have to understand that to undermine the credibility of your own president in front of the world. And when you do that, it weakens you, not him. And that's why tonight I'm saying something that makes people uncomfortable. Stop running your mouth about the president. Yeah, I know you have the right to do it under the Constitution of the United States, First Amendment, and that's what makes our country great. But still, stop calling your president stupid. Okay, and stop telling the world he doesn't know what he's doing, and just pray for him. Not because he's perfect, not because he's polite, because instability always costs us first. See, Black communities know what happens when chaos hits. We know what happens when the drugs hit the town. We know what happens when we have to deal with inflation. Okay? And so tonight we're going to talk about a lot of geopolitics. We're going to talk about Greenland. We're going to talk about NATO. We're going to talk about Europe. We're going to talk about Russia, Venezuela. We're going to talk about the Western Hemisphere. And it's going to go quick. But I think when I finish with this, okay, when I finish explaining you what I perceive Donald Trump's posture is, whether you like it or not, it's going to make a lot more sense to you. So you'll stop thinking emotionally and start thinking strategically. Again, this is not about politics per se. This is about survival, our survival. Now, my goal tonight is not to make you like Donald Trump. Shout out to everybody who voted for Kamala Harris. Somebody type collard greens. If you voted for Kamala Harris, type collard greens in the tub. Go ahead. Let me hear it. Come on now. Where are all my collard green in the tub people? Come on, let me know. Come on now. Don't be ashamed now. If you voted for Kamala Harris, somebody type Kamala Harris in the chat room. If you voted for Kamala Harris, write Kamala Harris in the chat room. 93% of black women voted for Kamala Harris. 21% of black men voted for Trump. 79% of black men voted for Kamala Harris. And 7% of black women voted for Donald Trump, more or less. Okay? My goal tonight is to get black people to stop speaking negatively about Donald Trump. I can't control everybody else. Everybody else might have a legitimate beef. I'm talking to black Americans, specifically foundational black Americans. You see, I know already, you know, some of you all just bristled up when I said it. You're like, oh, he can't tell me. Well, I know you did. And I know some of you think that that's never going to happen, Dennis. We like your broadcast. We're glad you got a haircut. But we're never going to not talk bad about Donald Trump. It has become a national pastime. I get it. I understand. I understand. Okay, I get it. All right. Now, I'm not measuring success by a conversation. I'm measuring it by the following. The next time you think to talk about Donald Trump, if you've heard this broadcast, if you just pause for a minute, I've done my job. Okay? That's it. Because see, that pause means you've grown politically. You've matured politically. It means you've become more serious. It means you're starting to understand how politics and power actually work. And the truth is, a lot of black people decided they were just never going to like Donald Trump. And so, you know, it is what it is. Before they studied leadership or geopolitics or history, or even lived a little. And not because of some deep analysis, because, you know, he just wasn't your choice. You chose Kamala Harris. That's not your choice. You just gonna not like him forever. Okay? Now, here's the thing. Okay? You know, here's the part people struggle with. Leadership doesn't stop because you're disappointed. Reality doesn't pause because you didn't get your preferred outcome. Donald Trump is the president of the United States. And once that happens, preference becomes irrelevant. Authority exists whether you like it or not. And this is where many people fail politically. They stay emotionally married to the outcome they wanted instead of adjusting their mindset to the power that actually exists. And that's not resistance. That's just straight up immaturity. Now, I'm going to refer to my books, Rules to Live By, because actually I wrote about Donald Trump and I wrote about what we're dealing with right now and power and many of these other things many years ago in my books, Rules to Live By, which you can get online at Amazon. And I actually have a few copies left. I will be more than happy to provide you with a copy of the books. Here's what let me see if I have some of the covers. I don't even think there's a cover right there. If you look at that, you can get those books online. I do have some autographed hard copies. But in chapter 13 of this book entitled The King's Eye View, I explained that leadership must be judged differently than everyday life. Okay? Most people look at decisions one at a time through you base it on fear, you base it on feelings, you base it on moral outrage. But a leader, or as I say, a king, doesn't have that luxury. A king has to think about survival, about consequences, about what happens next, even when the decision looks harsh, even when it looks foolish, even when it looks wrong from the outside. And as I wrote in the book, when fear drives conclusion, injustice abounds. That's exactly what happens when political disappointment blocks people from understanding power. Okay, leaders don't get purity. They inherit responsibility. And from the king's eye view, somebody type king's eye view in the chat room. From the king's eye view, specifically, or speaking recklessly about a sitting president, especially by a people who suffer first and worst when governments destabilize, That's not wisdom. It's dangerous. And history is almost always kinder to a bold, decisive leader than to a cautious, careful one. I call them bold fools, and I call them wise cowards. And in my book, I talk extensively about George W. Bush, right? We call him reckless, we call him stupid, we call him dangerous, and we did that in real time. And today, many people look at him and say, you know, including black people, and speak about him a lot more generously, don't we? We don't really talk bad about him at all. I mean, we kind of, some of us are like, well, hell, some of you, you know, a lot better than Trump, right? It's because he acted decisively and he carried the weight. Now, Barack Obama, we praised a historic, brilliant, and thoughtful leader. And today, many of the same people, I'm talking about my black brothers and sisters, we criticize him as being aloof, as being distant, as thinking he's arrogant even. And a lot of us have a problem with the fact that he was unwilling to spend his so-called political capital on black people when it mattered. In fact, even the brown people, the immigrants, are calling him the deporter in chief, because come to find out, he deported more illegal immigrants than any other president in history. You see, and that shift didn't happen by accident. That's history revealing what emotions hid. Leadership decisions are rarely understood in the moment. They're understood years, sometimes decades later, after the shouting dies down. Meanwhile, hesitation gets exposed over time. And black people, all people, in fact, should understand this. Okay, we've survived leaders we didn't choose, governments that were openly hostile, systems that didn't care, okay, whether we live or die. And we didn't survive that by insulting people. We survived it by discipline, and we had strategy, and we practiced restraint, okay? And that's why our response to Donald Trump being in office has to change. Now, for the people who, you know, love the Lord, like me, shout out to Faquan, the Bible doesn't say pray for leaders you like. It doesn't say pray for leaders you voted for. It says pray for leaders because their decisions affect your life, your safety, your money, your future, and your children. Okay? And judgment from leadership belongs to God, not to the crowd. And speaking curses over the person in charge of protecting you has never helped protect anybody, especially black people. And it has only left us exposed. And I'm gonna say this plainly: stop speaking against the president and start praying for him. Because whether you like him or not, what happens next affects all of us. Now, we need to, since we're talking about prayer, all right, I'm gonna let you hear this video by this pastor who said this, because this is the motivation that kind of brought this about. And I want you to hear what this brother has to say. You all hit the #1 button if you can hear it clearly.
Using that man outside your understanding. You can only understand Donald Trump if you read the Old Testament and see how God used prophets to destroy. So guess what? On one side, Donald Trump is doing God's will, while at the same time, he's also producing the very vengeance that's going to cause people to attack us in the future. But it's ordained that way. Okay? They are dancing so much in Nigeria because Donald Trump went over there for one reason and brought it with the United States military. He said, oh, you want to kill Christians? Wonderful. We're going to kill you. And we sent a bunch of military people over there, and they just start knocking down terrorists like you do at the bowling alley.
Now, can you all hear this clearly? Make sure you can hear it clear. If you can hear it clearly, let me know. Hit the #1 button.
He said, this is return for what you're doing to Christians. So the Nigerians are dancing. Then I woke up this morning and found out that Donald Trump then bombed Venezuela and kidnapped the president and his wife and brought them back to America. I was like, what? Do you realize how crazy this is? Your president said, y'all won't stop with the drugs over here, and I have known for decades. He gave him a chance. He said, okay, stop. We first gonna start bombing your boats. How many know for the last few weeks our military have been bombing all the boats bringing drugs to America, killing your kids? They want evil in this country. They want drugs to keep the systematic. Never mind. They said we have overwhelming evidence that the president of Venezuela was in cahoots with the drug dealers, pouring drugs into America. That is not something that you do, is you break into another country, bomb the man's home, and you take the president and his wife of Venezuela and then put them on a helicopter and bring them back to Brooklyn.
Back to Brooklyn.
But guess who's rejoicing? Y'all want to know who is rejoicing? The Venezuelans. So that should tell you something.
Yeah.
Why is it every time, all the people talk about this man, but every time he does something, the people rejoice. And so you're making decisions based on emotions of what you think. You're not making decisions based on how God uses men. When you see how God is using this man, he fits so easily into scripture when God gets ready to judge evil. And the men that he always uses to judge evil are always crazy. Don't say anything negative about the president. Just pray for him.
All right. So you guys generally get the picture. And I mean, that video has gone viral. I mean, there are people all over Black America, and that's a famous Black pastor. So, you know, I felt the need to kind of bring that, you know, to our table here. So now let me do this, because I want to try to bring light to what I believe that pastor is saying. He basically said we need to pray for Donald Trump because God uses men like him outside of your understanding, our understanding. And the reason that so many people struggle with Donald Trump is because they're trying to understand him from their own New Testament perspective. That's what the pastor said, okay? Now, when you really need to, and then he also followed up and said, when you really need to read and understand him from the Old Testament, it begins to make sense. And so what I believe he's saying is that in the and based on my studies of the New Testament focuses on individual salvation. It focuses on grace. It first focuses on mercy. It focuses on personal transformation through Jesus, okay? And the mistake that people make is trying to judge Donald Trump and national leadership and power with the framework meant for personal faith and redemption. By contrast, in the Old Testament, that Old Testament God, right? See, you see how God used men, he used prophets, he used kings to bring judgment. And when God gets ready to judge evil, the men he uses, they're wild and they're controversial and they're misunderstood, you know, and they're rude and they don't even fit well in polite society. They don't sound right. They don't act right. And to most people, they look crazy. And on one side, you know, Donald Trump is doing what lines up with God's will. On the other side, he's producing the kind of backlash and resentment that makes people angry and weary. But even that is part of the process. That's how judgment works. Judgment is not polite. And it never feels good while it's happening. And the problem is too many people are making decisions based on emotion, on how Donald Trump makes them feel and how offended they feel by his actions and the words he says. You see? And they're making decisions based on how, you know, but you're ignoring it. You're not making decisions based on how God actually uses men in history. Look, at what point, okay, look at the stories from places like Nigeria, and the pastor mentioned that. Okay, Christians were being slaughtered. Okay, even if you're not with the Christian thing, Black people, innocent people were being slaughtered. Okay, right? And so the United States stopped playing games. They applied that pressure. You see, people don't talk about that part. What about the people who were suffering at the time? Trump dropped a few missiles and everything got quiet. You see? You got a problem with him cracking down on leaders of countries that send drugs to our country? They allow their countries to be drug routes. You have a problem with him confronting those foreign leaders and sending a message You have a problem with him blowing up those drug boats? I'm just saying. Where was that? Where were those drugs headed? They were headed to Europe. They were headed to Chicago. They were headed to other inner cities. You see? Every time people talk about this man, every time pressure is applied to people who have been suffering quietly are often the ones who are relieved. And that should tell you something. Again, God does not always use polite instruments to deal with evil. Okay? He uses unlikely men. He uses men people don't understand. And so I'm going to say it again. I'm not going to soften it. All right? Don't speak ill against the president. Just pray for him. Okay? Now, what I'm going to try to do is in the next part of this broadcast is help you understand what Donald Trump is doing and why the stakes are so high, because whether you like him or not, the decisions being made right now affect the entire nations. As citizens, we have to believe that our leaders are acting in the best interest of the country as a whole. You don't have to agree with every decision. You don't have to like the man. But just because you don't like him doesn't mean he's not your president. And it doesn't mean he's not making decisions aimed at protecting the nation or what's in the nation's best interest. And this is where faith and prayer come in. Not blind faith, but disciplined faith. And here's a practical reality for Black people, especially that we especially need to understand, okay? What benefits America benefits Black America, and what hurts America hurts Black America first. See, we don't live outside the system. We live inside of it. And when the nation weakens, we feel it immediately. And when the nation stabilizes, we benefit from it. I'm not putting myself in Donald Trump's place. I'm not the president. All I'm asking you all to consider is this. There may be another perspective you don't fully understand. And if you're willing to listen tonight, not emotionally, but thoughtfully, then the next part of this conversation will help you see why these decisions matter and why the consequences reach far beyond personality and politics. Now, before I get into that next conversation, I want you all to hear what I'm saying is real. There's a lot of people who have a lot to say about the president. And I'm going to let you guys hear what the people have to say. Probably you all are probably saying a lot of the same things about Donald Trump. But let's go ahead and listen to what the folks have to say. I'm going to hit the number 1 button. And y'all go ahead and let's go ahead and get into it. Hit the number 1 button.
Is loving what's happening in America right now. It's pure schadenfreude. You know, that feeling you get when a billionaire's rocket explodes. See, America thought Europe liked them, but they just wanted them for their muscle. It's like when the sugar daddy thinks that the hot 20-year-old actually fancies him. When America finally implodes because Trump accidentally nukes New Orleans because he thought it was free.
All right, what this woman is basically saying is that Europe doesn't like Americans, okay? And I think many of us who know, we know that anyway, but this is as if it's some sort of big new idea. I guess they assume we're supposed to want Europe to like us, all right? So let's keep going.
France, Europe is going to throw the biggest party. Germany will organize it. France will do the wine. Italy, the food. Switzerland will make sure everyone turns up on time. Sweden will bring the girls and the boys. The Netherlands, the drugs. There'll be some Spanish guy on guitar going, "Why are you starting so early?" You invite the Austrians, even if you don't want to. Andorra will be in the corner, and everybody will be going, "Who's that?" And the Brits will make sure there's a huge fight at the end. And then Russia turns up. Did you forget to invite us? Guess who's your sugar daddy now?
Yeah. So, people have very strong opinions. Let's hear from the man himself. Y'all hit the number 1, but let's hear from Trump himself as he tells us what he's going to do. Hit the number 1.
97% of the drugs coming in by water, and we are going to start now hitting land. with regard to the cartels. The cartels are running Mexico. It's very, very sad to watch and see what's happened to that country. But the cartels are running, and they're killing 250, 300,000 people in our country every single year. The drugs, it's horrible. It's
Did you hear what did you hear what he said? The drugs are killing near almost up to 300,000 people in our country. We don't grow that. We don't grow those drugs in this country. That's what the man is saying. This is what the president is looking at. This is the president's perspective. Okay? So again, let's keep listening.
Devastated families, you lose a child or a parent. I mean, parents are dying too with drugs. So we've done a really good job. We're knocking it down. The numbers are really getting to be, they're always going to be too high if you have one person, but they're going down just like the border. The border was a total mess for years. I did it the first time very quickly, and this time I did it even better because this was a bigger mess. This was a border like no other probably in the history of the world. There's never been a border like that when anybody could just walk into your country.
The border's ostensibly really closed now.
Closed. You can't come in. And nobody comes. Nobody even tries.
Getting people in Greenland to get them on board with a possible U.S.
I'm not talking about money for Greenland yet. I might talk about that. But right now, we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not, because if we don't do it, Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor. Okay? I would like to make a deal, the easy way, but if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way. And by the way, I'm a fan of Denmark too. I have to tell you, and they've been very nice to me. I'm a big fan, but the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. I'm sure we had lots of boats go there also, but we need that because if you take a look outside of Greenland right now, there are Russian destroyers, there are Chinese destroyers and bigger, there are Russian submarines all over the place. We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland, and that's what they're going to do if we don't. So we're going to be doing something with Greenland, either the nice way or the more difficult way.
Okay, so my question is, family, are you all listening to what the president is saying? And if you are listening, is it that you just don't believe that he's telling you the truth, that there are Russian destroyers and submarines off the coast of Greenland? Is that not read? Do you all think that's a good thing? I mean, I don't think it's a good thing. Let's keep listening.
Please, go ahead, ma'am.
Mr. President, why is it so important to you to own it when you have a military presence there, which you could expand to affect the security?
Because when we own it, we defend it. You don't defend leases the same way. You have to.
What did he say? Huh? Let's hear that again. The reason we want to own it is why? Let's listen.
Because when we own it, we defend it.
Oh, okay.
You don't defend leases the same way. You have to own it. And, with a nation, look at what happened with Obama with that horrible deal they made with Iran. It was a short-term deal. It was like a 9-year deal. Countries can't make 9-year deals or even 100-year deals. Countries have to have ownership. And you defend ownership. You don't defend leases. And we'll have to defend Greenland. If we don't do it, China or Russia will. It's not going to happen. We are not going to have, and I like China, I like Russia, I love the people of China, I love the people of Russia. I get along very well with President Putin, but I'm very disappointed in him. I get along very well with President Xi. I'm going to go over to China in April, but I don't want them as a neighbor in Greenland. Not going to happen. And
how many of you all want to live next to your enemies? Everybody who wants to live next door to their enemy, get it. They might be down the street, but do you really want them to have close proximity to your house? I'm just saying, I'm trying to lay it down here where the cows can eat it. And
by the way, and NATO's got to understand that. I'm all for NATO. I saved NATO. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have a NATO right now. But we're not going to allow Russia or China to occupy Greenland, and that's what's going to happen if we don't.
There we go. So he said that part, right? And I see the temperatures rising in the chat room. Everyone is heated. We have a lot of angry people in here. I get it. Yes, I know. This is how you see Donald Trump right here.
On December 10th.
We're going to keep it. We're keeping it.
Where's it? Are we going to sell it or put it in the strategic?
Maybe we'll sell it. Maybe we'll keep it. Maybe we'll use it in the strategic reserves. We're keeping it. We're keeping the ships also. Yeah, please.
All right, let's keep listening to what the people have to say about Donald Trump. These are let's see here. We got I find it interesting. You got a lot of people who just say horrible things about President Trump. And again, I'm not really concerned necessarily about your politics at this point. I just want you to let's address, what actually is really going on. Now, these is one of these people that have negative things to say about Trump, and I'm gonna let him play. Go ahead, hit the number 1 button.
Just sent the Wagner group to Venezuela. Hey, Marine. Yagatubati church comrade. You ready?
This is a very odd take.
And so this is a guy that you have a lot of Americans who are literally rooting against the American interests. It's like you want our military servicemen to be harmed by people who are enemies. Think about what you're saying. You want other Americans and their children to have to suffer the loss because their servicemen were harmed by our enemies. Think about that. We'll let this fella talk.
Having like a smugness or an arrogance about the idea that your fellow countrymen may die in war. Maybe I'm misreading it, but it seems like you're almost relishing the idea to prove a point. But that being said, it's also wrong. The United States Marine Corps is ready to meet any strategic threat in the world if it is pointed at it by the leadership of the United States. Marines will, if they are told to solve a problem, they will slit your throat and drink your blood in front of your family. Okay? Like, it's not even funny. And what happened in Venezuela, granted, there weren't Marines involved in that, but what happened in Venezuela, regardless of how you feel about it, like legally or morally, it was a showcase of just exceptional U.S. military prowess. The sheer complexity of that operation is absolutely mind-boggling. And then the operation itself took less time than probably any of the meetings that took place to plan for it. The U.S. destroyed defense systems, air defense systems, with air assets in like 20 minutes. It seems like we frequently forget, like internationally, what the United States is capable of, and then the United States does something, and everybody's like, "Oh wow, they're really good at military."
Oh yeah.
Like yeah, we're very good at military.
Very much.
We weren't for the first like 100 to 150 years of our nation's history. I mean, that's probably that figure's probably off, but it's somewhere around there, I think. And it was primarily because we sucked at logistics. And then we got the logistics dialed in, and we are now capable of things that no other country is on Earth. Even if you look at history, what the U.S. is capable of in comparison to other countries is like insane. Like, it's nuts. You do not want the United States Marines or any of the United States military going anywhere to solve a problem, because it's gotten really bad if it's gotten to that point. The United States has to steward its power correctly. And some people are going to say exactly what happened to Maduro is being a good steward of that power, and some people are going to say showing restraint would have been a good way to steward that power. But yeah, I mean, this is a weird take.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said earlier, we showed restraint, and we end up having our cities flooded with dope. And as the president said, upwards of 300 American citizens dying every year as a result of that dope that's coming from South America. Hit the number 1 button if you can hear me clearly.
97% of the drugs coming in by water
And we are going to start now hitting land with regard to the cartels. The cartels are running Mexico. It's very, very sad to watch and see what's happened to that country. But the cartels are running, and they're killing 250, 300,000 people in our country every single year.
Yeah. I wanted you all to hear that so you can hear the numbers that we're dealing with. A year? I mean, family, a year. And of course, shout out to the United States Marine Corps. Shout out to the United States Army. Shout out to the United States Air Force. Shout out to the United States Navy. We support our military personnel on this page. Whatever your politics are, if you're an American, be happy, be thankful that we have young men and young women who are willing to put their lives on the line for you. So we support the United States military here. Nevertheless, let's keep going through these videos, and we'll continue this.
Just coming in, that Donald Trump just gave Cuba an ultimatum. Either you make a deal now before it's too late, or you are going to face the consequences.
Yeah.
Now,
and I'm absolutely sure Cuba is taking him far more serious than they would have taken Kamala Harris and they took Joe Biden. Keep listening.
one drop of oil and not one help with financial aid will go into Cuba if they don't strike a deal immediately. For all intents and purposes, Cuba will be completely shut down. But don't you understand what this president is doing as Russia and China have the ambitions of taking over the world?
Right.
He is securing a fortress around the United States of America by purchasing Greenland right off the East Coast and securing Cuba that Russia can never go in there again. That almost guarantees the safety and the security of all of our families on the East Coast. But did you see what Donald Trump said the other
Let's go ahead.
day? That he had a greater calling other than making money? That almost like God has spoken to him and said that.
Now, how many of you all have a problem with Donald Trump eliminating is it 70-year-old threat that is Cuba? I mean, love the Cuban people, but I'm just saying, as far as their government, has Cuba been our friend? I'm just talking to folks now. Just tell me. All right. Now, of course, Donald Trump has his supporters. Let's keep listening to these videos.
To see this.
Let me just say, Mr. President, that this country was going to die without you. This country was going to actually die without you.
Now, I know most people don't like Stephen Miller. I mean, I don't know the man, but he does not come across as the most appealing of characters. Nevertheless, what he just said was, or ask yourself, where was the country headed? I mean, you know, not just the international politics. Where were we headed? Were we going to continue having men playing in women's sports? Shout out to Cool E23. Were we going to, you know, with the integrated, sexually integrated bathrooms? Is this what we were going to continue? Were we going to reward Joe Biden for the lawfare, trying to put Donald Trump in jail? Was that what was going to continue? I mean, were we really headed in the right direction? So, you know, you might not like any of the cast of characters that are associated with Donald Trump. But again, let's just,
That's what we were facing in 2024. We've been invaded for 4 years. Our communities were sinking. Our public safety had gone to zero. Cartels were running entire communities. Sex trafficking, child trafficking, labor trafficking was out of control. Overdoses were out of control. The cartels were claiming more and more territory.
Is any of what he's saying untrue? If any of what this gentleman is saying is untrue, let me know, because this is the perception that I have of where our country was headed.
City services were buckling. This was a country on the verge of dying, and you alone saved it. And when you stepped forward originally in 2016, you started the movement to make America great again. And that means make America great again in every way, and that means safety and prosperity and peace and freedom from cartels and crime and gangs. And your vision and your leadership in declaring war on the drug cartels is the single most successful public safety initiative in American history. And I need the media to understand what President Trump has done. People have been talking about drug cartels for longer than I've been alive. And everyone has just taken for granted that they can't be touched or stopped. They're too big, they're too powerful, they're too evil, they're too murderous. They can operate with impunity. And in just 9 months, President Trump is the only American leader, not just in our lifetimes, but ever, to actually take the fight to the drug cartels, to actually seek their eradication. And it is happening. And so while the Democrats are shutting the government down and fighting for free health care for illegal aliens, look at what President Trump has assembled here. He's assembled a team under his vision, direction, and leadership that is saving hundreds of thousands of lives. Hundreds of thousands of lives. And only President Trump could have done this. And I will say one last thing, which is that his courage has been an inspiration to everyone else in this room.
All right, so you get the point that gentleman's like is attempting to make. And again, it doesn't matter to me what happened as far as the what led up to this. At this point, Donald Trump is the president of the United States. Hit the number 1 button if you can hear me clearly.
Publicly repent for all the stuff that I said about Donald Trump, because after watching this video, I believe this pastor is right.
Don't say anything negative about the president. Just pray for him. Because God is using that man outside your understanding. You can only understand Donald Trump if you read the Old Testament and see how God used prophets to destroy. So guess what? On one side, Donald Trump is doing God's will, while at the same time, he's also producing the very vengeance that's going to cause people to attack us in the future. But it's ordained that way. Okay? They are dancing so much in Nigeria because Donald Trump went over there for one reason and brought it with the United States military. He said, oh, you want to kill Christians? Wonderful. We're going to kill you.
All right, so we saw this already, so I'm going to get back to this conversation here.
The wise, and that we need to prepare and build, and that Trump was like the last trumpet. Trump is loud. He's brash, but he's saying a lot of things that the church has failed to say. Pastors have been too cowardly to say that there's only 2 genders.
Yeah, Trump broke the view. He broke them. Look, listen up.
Trump just broke the view. Watch.
Your question, who voted for this? The people in South Florida. The Venezuelan community, the Cuban American community, the Nicaraguan American community voted for this. And for us, this is a very, very happy day when we see a dictator who has been part of oppressing and abusing the Venezuelan people for 25 years, when we see him in handcuffs and held to...
As you guys know, they don't really like Donald Trump on The View. I've heard Whoopi Goldberg say some very harsh things about Donald Trump. And in fact, they used to be friends. And now you have this woman on The View, a woman of Hispanic descent, who's basically saying, I appreciate what Trump did. And she's been very critical of Donald Trump herself. But the fact that he got rid of this dictator, Maduro, I mean, did you think it was a good idea to allow him to stay there? I mean, you think it was good? Was it good for America?
Some sort of accountability. It brought me into tears. It brought me great joy. And there's these. Are
you okay with the way that it was done?
But you can. I think both things can be true.
Okay.
I think you can criticize and ask questions and have concerns about the way it was done and what this means in the future.
Right.
And I think you can still celebrate that this murderous, corrupt, sadistic son of a bitch is out of Venezuela. Because he has. I think there's 8 million Venezuelan exiles all over the world. People have fled from this man's tyrannical...
You gotta tell the truth. You got to, and Whoopi sitting there like a dog face like this. Yeah, just told you the truth. And Sonny gonna ask, well, do you think how he did it? It don't matter. It's done. The people are happy. Everybody's happy. Y'all wouldn't have been saying this if Biden and Kamala would have pulled it off, or Obama would have pulled it off. It wouldn't have been, yo, do you think how he did it? It's done. Yo, they're about to fire her. Y'all won't see her no more. Guarantee y'all won't see her no more.
To defeat Venezuela, and that is a fact. Maduro's military is one of the strongest, most equipped in South America. and their beaches right now are fortified with Russian, Iranian, and Chinese anti-air systems. These are terrifying America's Air Force. Venezuela also has 5 million reserves, including 8 more civilian reserves.
This aged like milk, didn't it?
Who are trained for urban warfare. The U.S. has deployed the invasion force in the circled area in Trinidad and Tobago, and aircraft carriers are already seen near the island. Here's the problem. Venezuela has been given Russian and Iranian missile systems that will turn any American naval ship into dust. Maduro also has one of the highest approval ratings in South America. That country is ready to fight for him. Trump has made it clear there will be land operations in Venezuela. He's confirmed this. And as of right now, there's only 5,000 Marines as an invasion force for the entirety of Venezuela. That's not going to be enough, and we could see a drastic fail that will taint America's military forever.
Well, that aged well, huh? Didn't it?
Yeah.
Pop-Tart. I'm tired of these dudes always thinking that they know what the fuck they're talking about, bro. When they don't know what the fuck they're talking about, they don't even understand or even fathom what's going on, or even, like they can't even compute what goes down when it comes to war and battle and any of that. Like, look at that dude, bro. Look at this guy. You think you want to take battle or war advice from a guy that looks like this? Come on, bro. Like, get him out of here. This guy does facials. But it just baffles me how all of these dudes seem to know exactly what's going to happen and how things are going to unfold and turn out. And they always...
So 6 of the minute ain't making it hot. I don't need no permission to blow up your spot. I don't need no permission to make you retire. You must not heard what happened to her. Rock. They must not heard what happened to the
Anytime you got the YNs out there making rap music to and telling the stories of Donald Trump, clearly something has changed. My son was telling me he can't turn TikTok on without them talking about politics. I said, well, son, and I said this humorously. I said, well, DJ T47 is the hottest rapper in America right now. Matter of fact, I go so far as to say he's bigger than Beyonce, bigger than Michael Jackson. The whole world knows his name. And so, this is what we're dealing with. Now, of course, there's some real repercussions to what's going on. And this is an example of those repercussions. This is
del interior. Este partido, el Estado, el gobierno.
And what you're looking at are the remains of Maduro's bodyguards. Apparently, Maduro had Cuban security guards from Cuba, and they just had to fly them home. And all of them flying home in these boxes right here. See these boxes? That's what's left of those Cuban security guards who were guarding Maduro. It's 32 boxes. I don't know if they were cremated or maybe it just wasn't enough left to bring them home. But either way, that's what happened to them. So yeah, there's some real repercussions, but yet and still the people of Venezuela are still seem to be very happy with the result. So, we're almost finished here and we're going to go move on to the second part because I want to get into the meat of what we're talking about here today. But you all hit the #1 button and let me know you can hear this clearly. Hit the #1 button.
Are going to get excited for this Maduro shit. As you see, black politicians are coming through. Trump is illegal. Trump is illegal. So all my niggas in the hood, let me teach y'all something real quick, yo. Fuck what they talking about. Look at this right here. See, Trump actually got the power to make moves without the congressional approval. So without Congress approval, he can make a military strike. As you can see right here. They did this back in Vietnam. All right? So, as far as it being illegal, I don't know. Because the man has been wanted since 2020, as you can see. Look at what he's wanted for. All these narcotics, tons of cocaine coming to America. That makes it, that gives the president the right to do that because now Maduro is being a terrorist to American citizens. Yo, he's being a threat to the safety of the public to American citizens. So that's why Trump can actually make that move. Look. I'm showing y'all. I'm talking to y'all. And when I say I'm talking to niggas in the hood, I ain't just talking to black people. I'm talking to all of us in the lower class. that don't even really be fucking with politics like that. But politics got real fucking.
Sure, China and Russia are not happy at all that Trump has taken over, invaded, and going to run the whole country, whereby he's going to have access to huge amounts of oil. Where does China get its oil from? Gets it from Venezuela. It is in partnership, collaboration with Venezuela. So Trump has done an amazing chess move. And what he's done, he has now checkmated China on delivery of oil.
Well, how about that? I mean, you know, sounds like he's doing what's in our best interest. Let's keep listening. Hit the #1 button if you can hear me clearly.
The kingdom is in talks to send troops to Greenland to protect against the United States.
So what you all may not know is that Trump has been asking Europe to send troops to Greenland for a while now, and they refuse to do it. And now all of a sudden, for some amazing reason, now they're deciding to send the very same troops to Europe, from Europe to guard Greenland that he wanted there in the first place. But it took him threatening to invade Greenland for them to do that. Isn't that peculiar?
I have never thought I would have to say that in my life. So I'm going to take you through a series of events that will happen if the United States invades Greenland, and I hope this changes a lot of people's minds about whether to do it or not. Day 0 of invasion, the U.S. military attacks from 3 different sides. Greenland is a large ice country, so the very first step would be to find the populated centers and seize government buildings.
I think there's only like 50,000 people in Greenland. Is there like 50,000 people in Greenland? We could like, you know, fill up Foxborough Stadium, and we'd have more people in Foxborough Stadium than they have in Greenland, just so you know.
Any resistance from the island, including from British troops, would be met with total destruction. NATO shatters, and suddenly
NATO would shatter if the United States stopped funding it. So, you know, and is NATO shattering really a bad thing? And I'm going to challenge you all with that, because we're going to get to it. NATO was brought about because Europe kept getting into wars, and they needed some agreements between European countries that if they were attacked, that other European countries would agree to help. Now, I don't know if you all realize this, but the United States has not been attacked since around 1812, when the British came back to try to, you know, take their colony back. So I don't necessarily think, you know, the United States being attached to or obligated under the terms of NATO is a good thing. That's something we'll deal with a little bit later. So if NATO shatters, is that really a bad thing for the United States of America? Okay.
Putin has no deterrence from launching an all-out attack on previous Soviets.
When I said the United States, I meant United States, the continental United States, not Pearl Harbor, which is Hawaii. And I get what you're saying. Technically, you're correct. But I meant the United States, the continental United States. But thank you so much, Vince, for that correction.
States. Launching an attack on Greenland seems like it would be a terrible idea, since the U.S. already has an agreement with Greenland to be able to use their mineral rights and to be able to build a military base on that land anytime they want. I think this has more to do with Arctic supremacy and countering Russia and China more,
but again,
than the mineral rights itself.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So, you know, I got a couple more videos, and then we're going to proceed forward, and we're going to there's this video, this young lady, I think she's a popular TikToker. She's talking about the United States. He's talking about, this young lady is talking about the United States military seizing a tanker full of oil with a Russian flag on it, and Putin didn't do anything. Not that we know of. Let's keep listening.
High altitude, low opening, special fucking forces into the Russian fucking ship.
Fair use.
He took it. When the motherfucking Russians were taking the
Family friendly. Somebody type family friendly. Language, ma'am, language.
Opportunity of sending a warship and a naval fleet. They even painted the side of the damn ship with a Russian flag, thinking that Donald Trump would leave them alone.
Nope.
Because they're friends, right?
No, Russia and America are not friends. We're not friends. We are not friends, ma'am. We are definitely not friends. We have not been since the end of World War II, when we split Germany up, east and west. So we're not friends, ma'am.
Fuck! I've already cried. I literally cried on live. I cried. I cried.
You're crying because you got some oil, some free oil. How much are you paying for gas? Because I'm cool with the free oil, ma'am. But go ahead.
Because what? You kidnapped the Venezuelan president and his wife, and then unalived 80 people, 32.
Well, he had a warrant. He had a warrant for his arrest. So is it kidnapping or arrest? But go ahead.
Two of them happen to be Cubano. And then you took the opportunity of threatening Mexico, Cuba, Colombia, and Greenland, scattering all of Europe. And
Mexico and Colombia are part of, an extensive drug cartel. Narco traffic is coming up here and killing hundreds of thousands of Americans with, bad drugs. Somebody type bad drugs in the chat room. And so I think that's what the threat was about, ma'am.
And then for some reason, you better watch Britain, Europe. I'm telling you right now, because Britain flew alongside with us for this operation with Russia.
Yeah, because Russia and Britain don't like each other. They are teetering on war. In fact, the longtime former advisor to Putin was on Tucker Carlson's broadcast and basically said that, they expect within a couple of years that they want to shoot some nukes off at European countries. And his first choice is England. So they don't really like each other. And that's another reason why we are trying to walk away from NATO, because we want to mind our American business. We want to stay on our side of the hemisphere and let those angry, short, skinny Europeans work out their own issues. Okay, we want to hold on to our guns and Bibles and apple pie and kind of mind our business. We're cool with our pickup trucks. We're good. Okay.
They might be doing the same shit they was doing with Germany under the Anglo-German Fellowship of 1935, playing both sides. But we scrambled. NATO got scrambled. They all condemned our actions, said we violated international law. But Britain sent their fighter jets with us to go and go onto that Russian tanker today. Mm-hmm. That Russian tanker has been followed for the last 2 weeks, from the Coast Guard to Special Forces.
Yes, because we wanted to get the oil, and we don't want Russia to continue to have oil to, turn into gasoline and other fuel, so that they can continue their war against Ukraine. We're kind of tired of that, ma'am. I mean, that's what sanctions do. Don't try to sneak your oil, from Venezuela, to the Black Sea. We know what you're doing. Okay, we know it. We have satellites we see. Again, Russia is not our friend, ma'am. Russia is not our friend. Let's keep going.
Special Forces. You switched from the Coast Guard to Special Forces. Okay, so you knew that wasn't our ship. You knew we had no business over there, because you sent the top fucking dogs in order to exterminate. Russia warned us 3 times. He said last June he will unalive all Brits if it comes down to it. He said last September he don't mind dropping a nuke on the United States of America if he got to.
Well, I mean, that would guarantee mutual annihilation, ma'am. So I don't think, maybe he's just talking. I'm just saying. You talk about Putin, maybe he's just talking. Maybe it's like a negotiation technique. Maybe he's being loud and boisterous and, threatening, and that's how he gets what he wants. He says mean, nasty things, and somehow the world just capitulates. You know, maybe we're missing something here. You know, Putin is talking loud and making threats, and you know, people are just letting him. You know, he invaded Crimea and Ukraine, and you know, I don't know. Maybe it's a negotiation technique. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's something you don't know and I don't know that Putin as a leader of a superpower would know. Maybe our own president might have gone to that same class and taken that class on, you know, geopolitical negotiations. I'm not sure. You tell me. I wouldn't know. I'm sure you know.
Mostly, this is an ex-KGB member. This man is an assassin.
So he's mean. That's what you're saying. He's mean. So maybe because he's mean, maybe just talking to him nice and say, hey, Putin, please don't, you know, import the sanctioned oil to, you know, from Venezuela, because that's not nice. You know, I mean, you're not being nice, Putin. You know, you're kind of being rude. Like, we have these sanctions on Venezuela and you're, you know, taking oil from them, and that's not cool. So stop that, please. You know, it's not cool. Maybe that didn't work, like talking to him, because he's mean. Like you said, he's an ex-KGB assassin. He's probably a mean guy. So how do you talk to mean people? Maybe you suggest we talk nice to him. Maybe send him a letter. We'll send him a stern letter. Maybe that'll work. Maybe you should tell Donald Trump, you should send him an email. I mean, you go to his social media page and just suggest to him maybe he should, you know, ask nicer next time. You know, maybe that's what
the same man who currently built a military base in Nicaragua on June 11th of 2022. Oh, the same man that just sent his pre-KGB Wagner group over to Venezuela about a month ago, and they're still there. You don't know where they are, though.
I'm sorry. Is that the Wagner group? Is that the same Wagner group that the United States Marine Corps? You know, I think we did put quite a smiting on them. The same Wagner group that you're bragging on. Where are my Marines? Are there any United States Marines in here? Have you all heard of the Wagner group? Because I recall a story where the Wagner group tried, as we used to say, they tried it with the United States Marine Corps and it didn't work out that well. So, but anyway, why are you bragging on the Wagner group from Russia? Why are you, I mean, you know, I'm just saying, because I love being an American and I'm proud of being an American. And, you know, my, you know, history here is, as an American, goes back hundreds of years. You know, I'm a foundational Black American person, you know, and so I love the United States. You know, both of my brothers are members of the United States Marine Corps. Did you know that? You know, my Uncle Bob, is a Vietnam veteran, 101st Airborne, then got out after his tour of duty and re-enlisted as a Marine. So my granddaddy was a Marine. And so, you know, we have great respect for the United States military. So, you know, I would not brag on some other fighting force. Wagner group, is that like what? I don't know what that is, but shout out to the Marines, shout out to the Air Force, shout out to the Army. I support you. I support you.
You took Russians.
Yeah, we did. They shouldn't have been, you know, the oil thing. It was the oil. Yeah.
I have no words.
Well, you know, it is what it is. But anyway, let's you know, we got a lot of different diverging opinions about Donald Trump. I got one more video. I'll go ahead and let this play.
You know, the security guard that was protecting Maduro and failed.
Yeah.
Apparently he's come out and has said a few things about the incident.
He did.
Listen to this.
A security guard that was protecting Maduro has spoken, and you got to hear what he said. It's in Spanish, but I'll translate. Also, Trump announced that, you know, the cartels, they're going after him in Mexico. The whole vibe of Latin America has changed.
Really?
Because of what happened in Venezuela. And now that we're getting firsthand accounts from people that were there, the soldier says they didn't hear him coming. He says the Americans had technology superior to anything they've ever seen. Everything that they were using.
Before we get if I forget, you guys make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the like button. Whether you like me or not, I'm going to make you think. I might make you mad. And again, if you learn something, I should earn something. And I promise tonight you're going to learn something today, wherever you are around the world. Just hang in there. I'm just laying the foundation, letting you know this is what people are talking about. This is for posterity. People might look at these videos in several years. So this is what we're doing. But he's talking about the United States military and our capability, because there's so many people selling wolf tickets about, oh, the Wagner group, and we should be afraid, and Russia and China has all these technologies, blah 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 blah, and then
using for radar for anything was completely taken offline. They had drones, and the drones were taking out bases and taking out things faster. They didn't have no technology. They've never had to fight against drones.
No.
He also talks about that there was only 8 helicopters. There was only 20 men that were sent in. And those 20 men killed hundreds of their men. And none of those soldiers were injured. He talks about it felt like they were firing 300 rounds a minute. Nothing they've ever seen.
No.
Nothing that they can compete with. And then he also talks to the fact that the Americans had some kind of sonic shock boom that was sent out, and everybody immediately started bleeding profusely out of their nose. They couldn't even gather themselves because whatever was sent at them made them fall to their knees and vomit.
So basically, the United States has been developing sonic wave technology for about the past 20 years. I remember hearing about that some years ago. So you can't even fight us. Your soldiers, no matter how much running you do, no matter how many, you're gonna fall down when your brain starts jiggling, okay, and your organs feel like they're going to disrupt or explode. You're done. You're done. This is our military, okay. And the only thing that has kept us from doing what Donald Trump is doing is we haven't had a president who felt compelled to do it and the will to do it like President Trump. Shout out to everybody contributing to the super chat. We ain't got good yet. You're going to learn a lot. I promise you, there are going to be some people in here who hear this broadcast and they're going to say, damn, I think maybe I should stop talking negatively about this man. But let's continue listening.
Blood out of their mouth and out of their noses. They were incapacitated immediately. He says he never wants to go through that again. Doesn't want to have to fight with the Americans again. He's sending warnings to everybody out there that you think you can fight the Americans. You don't even know what their weaponry is like and what they're capable of. 20 men took out hundreds, and that's starting to spread all through Latin America. And now they're not saying, if you want me, come and get me anymore. They're like, oh shit.
Yeah, you don't say
especially
that.
After Trump says, hey, Mexico, you're on the list too.
FAFO. All right. So let's go ahead and get down to business. Please, again, family, like I always say, if you want to, if you like what I'm doing here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Now let's get down to it. Why is Greenland all of a sudden a story? Because you remember a couple of years back, people were laughing. Greenland, everybody was laughing, right? And now they're not laughing anymore, are they? Nobody's laughing. You thought it was a joke. You thought this is some delirious 70-something-year-old man talking crazy. Okay, and here's the thing. When people hear Trump talk about Greenland, people, that already don't like America, or just don't like Donald Trump, including many of you listening to this broadcast right now, many of you in your comments, especially my Black American brothers and sisters, not all of y'all, but it's some Black folk out there. You immediately assume that the United States is just trying to bully somebody and take land and steal resources, right? And that's the story of many of our folks, and plenty of others already tell themselves when it comes to America. Many of you all believe that my country is evil. You believe America's evil, like other countries aren't evil. You don't think China's evil? You don't think Russia did some evil stuff? Do you know who Stalin is? Do you don't think Germany's done some evil stuff? Huh? Really? Now, anyway, to be fair, based on our country's history, that story is true in some respects. However, if you're serious about understanding power, you have to admit something, and this is basic stuff. Major countries focus on geography, access, resources, and security. And that's how the world actually works, whether you like it or not. And when President Trump talks about something like taking Greenland, he's operating with national security briefings and military assessments that the public typically never sees in full. That does not mean every word out of his mouth is perfect. We know the man says crazy stuff. Okay, like I said before, we know DJT47 says crazy, rude, mean, nasty things, and you're not required to like his style, his tone, or his delivery. But you are required to be careful about assuming you understand the full picture from a headline, especially with limited information. And see, there's levels to this, okay? There's levels to this. And so when Trump says Greenland is critical to the U.S. security and keeps raising Russia and China, people hear arrogance. What they should hear is that he's talking about strategic access in the Arctic and the North Atlantic and an area that the U.S. military and NATO have treated as vital for decades. Now, I'm gonna strip this down, and I know we got some geopolitical gurus in here, and I don't want to make anybody mad, okay? But I want to be able to help people who don't know. Now, I'm gonna put up a quick picture of the North Atlantic. All right. I'm going to put this up because I want you guys to check it out so we can kind of know what we're talking about. All right, y'all hit the number 1 button if you can see this clearly. Hopefully, let's see here. I'm going to do my very best to, let me see here. All right. Let me know if you guys can see that. Can you see that? Is it big enough for you? Let me make it a little bigger. Oh, no. Okay. So this is the North Atlantic right here. This is for everybody. This is, oh no. Oh my God, I messed that up. Hold on a minute. Let me try that again. Let me know if you can see this. All right, I will try to keep this screen up. Oh no. I keep messing it up, guys. I'll try one more time. I'll just leave it like that. Okay, so this is Washington, D.C. right here where this arrow is. This general area is considered the North Atlantic. Now, if you hop skip over here, this is Russia. This is Europe. All right, this is Spain here. This is Dublin. This is what we call the UK. This is Denmark. This is where the Vikings are from. Okay, so the North Atlantic, and the Arctic, all of this is trending, and they are. Here's the thing: Greenland sits along the shortest route between North America and Eurasia. When they say Eurasia, they're talking about Europe/Asia. Europe is like this butt end of the Asian continent, but they just separated because for whatever reason. But the bottom line is the quickest path from, and if you follow this little hand icon, the quickest path from Russia to North America is straight down the Norwegian Sea, the Greenland Sea, Norwegian Sea into the North Atlantic. Okay, so Greenland is right here. Okay, and so this is a maritime corridor. Okay, and that's why the United States maintains a space base. They used to call it Thule Air Base. I don't know what they call it now, but it's in northwestern Greenland. And that base supports missile warning and missile defense and surveillance. And in plain language, it helps detect threats early, and it helps us maintain awareness in the region. And this Arctic competition that we're having with China and Russia is not imaginary. Russia has invested heavily in its Arctic military posture for years. And China, even though it's not considered an Arctic nation, has openly described itself as a quote unquote near Arctic state. And that's given them grounds to go ahead and start trying to take over part of what's going on. And keep in mind, the North Pole, right? The North Pole is beginning to melt because of, heating, global warming, whatever you want to call it, okay? Some people say it's a naturally occurring thing, but the bottom line is there are more travel lanes there that weren't there hundreds of years ago, all right? So here's the point. When Trump says the United States can't afford to be complacent about Greenland, I want you to look at the tip of Greenland and look how close it is to New York. Greenland is closer to New York than New York is to let's pick it, Denver. You understand what I'm saying? Just think about that. All right. And if you just look at Boston or Halifax to the tip of Greenland is closer than Washington, D.C. is to Kansas City. Okay. So it's not very far off. So now we understand there's a proximity issue. Now, does this mean taking Greenville, Greenland, would that be legal, just taking it, right? Is it realistic? Is it wise? That's a different question. I'm not answering that question. Denmark and Greenland's leaders have repeatedly said Greenland is not for sale. Keep in mind, Denmark is over here, okay? You got Sweden, Denmark, and Iceland right here. They're like three fingers sticking out of Northern Europe there. And that's, like I said, Greenland is kind of like its own country, but it's governed by Denmark. They got a thing going, okay? But we refer to Norway, Denmark, Sweden. I'm sorry, I said Iceland before. Norway, Denmark, Sweden. And here's the thing. Greenland, it remains a high value piece of geography at the moment when the Arctic is opening up. And all these great superpowers are competing for a position there. And yes, there's resources, and that's part of the conversation. Greenland has a significant mineral potential. They got a lot of rare earths. And because these rare earths feed modern industry, and it's also necessary for defense production. But hear this clearly, even if we take the resources completely off the table, Greenland is still strategically important because of the location and the early warning capability access. And so Trump, being Trump, he said what nobody else was willing to say out loud: we're going to take it. Now, President Trump has repeatedly emphasized publicly that the United States needs Greenland for national security, and he linked it to NATO and the Allied burden sharing concerns. In other words, you guys got to help, pay for this, right? And in January this year, he doubled down and he said openly that the U.S. is going to have to secure Greenland to counter Russian and Chinese influence. And following that escalation, guess what happened? Right? They believe Trump now, right? What happened after he said we're going to take Greenland? Right? Now, he just told them we need y'all to secure this. And the minute he said we're going to take it, guess what happened? Several European so-called allies, including France, Germany, and Sweden and Norway, announced that they were going to go ahead and send troops over there. That's what they said. Denmark, meanwhile, has consistently maintained that Greenland is not for sale, but they don't want to put the troops over there to protect it. Now, what was the rest of Europe's action? Okay, Russia's response has been loud and dramatic, and it got real serious if you don't know what you listen for. Okay, literally, when the president started talking like the United States was prepared to take Greenland one way or the other, Russia didn't respond calmly. They responded like a hit dog hollering. Trump has said publicly that Greenland is critical to the U.S. national security. And he said it plainly, and if the United States does not move, Russia or China will, and America is not going to accept either one of them as our neighbor sitting on the northern doorstep. And Russia hears that, and they understand exactly what it means because they have to take this man seriously. And so when the Russian, there was a gentleman, his name was Dmitry Rogozin. You guys know who Tucker Carlson is, right? I want you guys to go over to Tucker Carlson's broadcast where he had this former Russian advisor to Putin came on there. Dmitry Rogozin. This man starts using apocalyptic language, talking about the end of the world and framing Greenland as part of a missile defense and the nuclear. You understand me? And this is not because he's being dramatic for attention. That's because Russia is thinking in hard terms about deterrence and detection and being boxed in strategically. And that's fear talking. That's that pressure talking. So Trump is pressing these people. Okay, now watch the contrast, because this is where regular people miss the plot. While Russia is talking like this, it's about to be the end of the world. We're going to take it to that level. You got Denmark and Greenland. They're handling through democracy, diplomacy. They met with Vice President Vance and Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. And Denmark once again reiterated that Greenland is not for sale. And yes, public reporting says that, they have some fundamental disagreements, and that's cool. It matters because, but see, it shows who feels strategically threatened and who is trying to keep this inside of the boundaries, of politics. Russia is reacting from a position of vulnerability. Denmark is reacting from a position of negotiation. Two different postures. And that tells you exactly where the real pressure is landing. And if you're paying attention, you'll notice something else. Nobody's panicking about an American invasion. What they're doing instead is adjusting. They're repositioning. They're responding because they understand this isn't chaos, it's leverage. Somebody type leverage in the chat room. Let's see, here's where most of you all missed it. See, a lot of you all are watching and it looks crazy. And it's only because you're watching it like a spectator. You're not watching it like a participator. And from where I'm sitting, this doesn't look like chaos at all. It looks like pressure, it looks like leverage. Trump says things boldly, sometimes even recklessly, but the effect is real. People have to take him seriously. You done went down there and snatched 20 men went and snatched a president of a country out of his house in the middle of the night. So everybody's taking Trump seriously. Greenland went from being treated like a meme to being people taking it real serious. You better take this president serious. It's a problem, okay? And the moment this standoff heated up, Europe started moving. France announced it was sending troops. Germany followed. Denmark said it was about to increase its military presence. Other European countries said we're going to help. And the troop numbers aren't massive, but that's not the point. The posture shift is the point. In other words, what do I have to do to get these fools off their butt to put some security up here in their so-called piece of property that they're supposed to have, that they leased us a little area on? You see? So now what's happened is Arctic security, our front door, our back door, depending on how you consider Russia's proximity to the United States, it jumped back into the top priority list. That doesn't happen by accident. And see, here's what you all need to understand, and I want to explain what Donald Trump did. You guys know this man wrote a book called Art of the Deal, and he's transactional. He's a businessman. A leopard doesn't change his spots just because he gets a new title. All Trump did was start high because Europe had started low, right? Europe's position was simple. We're not going to do a damn thing. We're not going to send troops. We're not going to spend any money. We don't care if Russia parks ships and boats next to you. We live next to Russia. They got submarines and boats all around here. Y'all should get some of this. And Trump's response was equally clear. If you don't secure it, we will. Okay? And we're not just going to send troops. We're going to take the whole thing. It's going to be ours. And I'm talking about Green. We're going to take it from you. And that forced Europe to move. And where did they move to? They moved to the middle. The middle was exactly what Trump said to do in the first place. Put troops in Greenland and you pay for it. So the American public doesn't have to. We're paying for enough. And that's the art of the deal. And see, most people miss that because you don't like Trump and you're thinking emotionally. You're emotionally invested in hating Trump instead of intellectually invested in understanding how power works. You don't have to like Trump. You don't have to like how the man talks. But if you're an American citizen, you should at least recognize when your country just got leverage without writing another blank check that you're going to have to pay for. And let me make this plainly clear. Europe started with zero. They didn't want to help. They just got this piece of land over here in the Western Hemisphere. And they just want to hold on to it. Okay? See? We're not giving anything. Their position was, we're not adding troops. We're not spending money. We're not treating Greenland like a priority. We have other things to do. And that meant the entire burden, the money, the manpower, the risk, the responsibility, it all falls back on the United States. Again, it's the same story. Europe gets in the fight. We got to go over there and bail them out. Come help us with Ukraine. Come help us with World War II. Come help us with World War I. And here's where people messed up the analysis. See, Trump did not negotiate downward from zero. That would have been foolish. You don't compromise with someone who's already decided to do nothing. So instead of begging and pleading, okay, or trying to be polite, can y'all please send some troops to Greenland because, Russia's got all these, they got all these submarines over here and, all these battleships, and it just makes us uncomfortable to have them here. We're tired of it. We need your help. Give us, it's your responsibility. We're all NATO. Right? Trump blew all that up. He blew up the comfort zone. He made inaction expensive. Okay? He made delays dangerous. In effect, what he said, if you won't handle it, I will. And I'm gonna handle it completely. And that statement was never meant to be taken literally by social media commentaries. It was leverage. It was pressure. It was a deliberate threat designed to force movement where there was none. And once the threat existed, Europe could no longer pretend Greenland was optional. Either you gonna go over there and protect it from Russia, or you're gonna put your troops over there protected from us. But you're gonna put some troops over there either way. Zero is no longer a safe position. Doing nothing now carries consequences, so Europe moved. Now, did they move too late? I don't know. We'll see if Trump takes it anyway. Right? You should have acted a couple of years ago. All right. So, and if you don't understand that, you don't understand negotiation. And if you don't understand negotiation, you definitely don't understand how that works. Now, again, what people are calling crazy is actually textbook negotiation strategy. I mean, this is called anchoring. All right. You don't start where you want to end up. You start at an extreme, and that makes the other side uncomfortable enough to move. Only unserious people believe reasonable tones equals effective strategy. Hey, like the young lady, hey, Putin, can you please leave Greenland alone? You think Putin is going to listen to that? You're silly if you think being polite equals strength. That's not going to get you anywhere. Calm language equals leverage. You being calm with somebody, they have leverage over you. International politics doesn't reward niceness. It rewards results. And Trump didn't wake up one day and randomly decide to threaten Greenland. This moment came after years of the same pattern. Europe underfunding its own defense, so we have to do it. Okay? All right? Europe relying on U.S. protection, and what that means is our tax dollars and our soldiers. I just told you I got a bunch of family members in the military. Some of y'all know how much money I pay in taxes. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of footing the bill for illegal aliens. I'm tired of paying for the security, military security and safety of everybody in the world. I'm tired. I want to keep my American tax dollars in my pocket. And then meanwhile, you got Europe ignoring Arctic security because they know if we don't do anything about it, well, the Americans will just take care of it. So the American taxpayer has to foot the bill. You see, and see, again, we are $37 trillion in debt. And you want us to be polite? You want a polite president? Because see, polite requests fail. And so that's why this pressure followed. And that's not madness, that's adulthood. And that's how real negotiations work when the stakes are high. Calling this chaos or insanity is what people do when they don't understand leverage, when they don't understand negotiation, and they don't understand how the real world works. Because here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to say out loud. Once Trump raised the stakes, Europe did exactly what it had refused to do for decades. That means the tactic worked. You don't have to like Trump. You don't have to admire his personality. You can think he's a scumbag. You don't have to approve his tone. You can think he's rude. But if you still can't recognize a successful power move that's in the best interest of the United States, that's right in front of you, then the problem isn't Trump. The problem is you're still trying to judge geopolitics with your feelings instead of thinking. And feelings are useless at this level of the world. Now, I can't prove Trump's private motives from the outside because none of us sit in those intelligence briefings. But I can tell you what the public facts show. He escalated the language. He framed the issue around Russia and China. And after the escalation, Europe got off his butt and suddenly started acting with urgency on Greenland. And that sequence matters. That's why I call this a negotiation tactic, not madness. Now, Greenland sits on the routes that matter in real crisis, submarine routes and air corridors and missile paths across the North Atlantic and Arctic. So when people clutch their pearls and say, why are we even talking about taking Greenland? How rude. The answer is simple. Geography doesn't care about your funky feelings. Greenland is America's front door, and front doors get locked down and secured before anything else. Now, let's talk about NATO, because this situation exposes the truth everybody likes to dance around. NATO, the North American Strategic, North American Strategic Alliance? I don't know. I think I've got that one. But anyway, NATO leans heavily, and I mean heavily, on the American tax dollar. We're paying for NATO. I think we pay up to 70, 80% of the budget. And we have been doing it for like 50 years or something like that. They need our money and they need our American military muscle. European governments know that. That's why even with all this so-called fundamental disagreement, you don't see Europe preparing to fight the United States over Greenland, do they? They sending a couple troops up there, They need a lot more than that if they were planning the war. They're not loading them up and sending them up there by the hundreds and thousands. See, instead you see them trying to manage the alliance. You see them they coming over here trying to negotiate. They trying to calm the situation down and quietly increase their military posture in the Arctic, because everybody understands what happens if America stopped protecting Europe. They get Ukrained. That's what happens. Okay, and Trump's language creates pressure, and pressure creates movement, and movement creates burden sharing. And the burden sharing matters because the American taxpayer is not supposed to be Europe's permanent financier. More importantly, the American service member, our military, the Marines, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, Space Force, we are not meant to be lifelong bodyguards for Western Europe, especially when we're nearly 30 or over $37 trillion in debt. And we have serious problems at our home. We're trying to finance Medicaid, or Medicare, and Social Security. That's the reality. You see? And this is why this isn't chaos. It's strategy. Are you understanding Greenland a little bit better? Is it starting to make a little bit more sense to you? So you're putting yourself in a position and trying to understand what's going on in the world from your own limited view. And I'm not saying you can't, but you're going to have to do a lot more work than that. Now let's move on to Iran, right? Somebody type Greenland in the chat room. Somebody type Greenland in the chat room. Now we're going to type Iran in the chat room. Are you learning something? Are you learning something? Now, why is it that Iran matters? Most of you all may not know why Iran is. It's in what's called the Middle East. It's formerly known as Persia. You know in the Bible, Persia, over there with them people. But before we get lost in history, let's deal with the stakes right now, okay? Iran is not some foreign country minding its business. Iran sits at the center of the Middle East. And when Iran shakes, the entire region shakes. That affects the oil prices, the shipping lanes, the military conflicts. It affects terrorism. It affects global stability. And when global stability breaks down, Americans feel it immediately. You feel it at the gas pump. You feel it because the price of groceries go up because you can't get the food to the grocery store without the gas. And if the company's got to pay, guess who they're going to make pay? The consumers. It also affects the job market and eventually in military deployments. And so this is not abstract. This is not just academic. Iran influences major oil routes. It backs armed militias across that region. It runs one of the largest missile programs outside of the major nuclear powers, and it sits close enough to the U.S. allies that its weapons and proxies can trigger wars without firing a single missile directly at the U.S. So when Iran destabilizes, the world doesn't just watch, the world absorbs the shock. And if you think that shock hits everybody equally, you haven't been paying attention to history. See, Iran is not acting alone. It's aligned with Russia. It's economically and diplomatically backed by China, and it has deep ties, or did have deep ties, with Venezuela and the other governments who are openly hostile to us. And these are not friendships built on culture. They're built on shared interests. Okay, their job is to weaken America. Their job is to make Americans angry because you're breaking yourself trying to pay for the basic cost of living. They want to challenge the United States and our dominance in the world. They want to reshape the globe in a way that fits them. A strong Iran strengthens Russia. A strong Iran gives China more leverage. And a strong Iran destabilizes the U.S. That's why Iran is treated, it's a strategic problem. And it's one of them affects American power directly. Now, I want to rewind and take you back a minute. See, I remember when I was little, but I remember stories about Iran. I remember Jimmy Carter, Iran, whatever. Iran was one of the most modern cities, modern countries in the Middle East. Tehran, which is the capital of Iran, or Iran, excuse me. They considered it the Paris of Middle East. Not the Paris right now. Okay, Paris right now is pretty crappy, but Iran before 1979 was really a beautiful place, man. They had universities, they had nightclubs, they had industry. Let me show you some pictures of what the people look like in Iran back in 1979. And I remember we had a bunch of Iranian people come to this country, lots of engineers and very intelligent people. I'm gonna put this up. This is what Iran used to look like. This is how the women used to dress in Iran. See that? Photos of Iran in 1979. They was out there hot. You know what I'm saying? They had modern cars, no hijabs. What do they call them? You know what I'm saying? Now it look like this. All right. And I find that interesting, family. And I'm just going to say this, and you can take it how I want. I notice a lot of these countries that, when they let these religious factions take over, they go down, and way down. You can take it how you want to. But anyway, back before 1979, women were educated. They had active public life. They had a middle class that existed, that was growing. Okay, it wasn't freedom, because the Shah, which is the king, right? The king, it was an autocratic country. Political power was centralized, and elections were controlled, and dissent was not tolerated. All right, they had a secret law enforcement agency called the Savak. That's their secret police. They were known for torture, arresting people. They disappeared a lot of people. This is under the king, the Shah, okay? There was some economic growth, but political legitimacy, there was none of that. And so I get that contradiction mattered. But by the late 1970s, things got hot. All right. Things got hot because people didn't like the way the Shah was treating them. And so in September 1978, the government forces, they unalived hundreds of protesters in Tehran in a place called Jaleh Square, Jaleh Square, and they refer to that day as Black Friday. The government under that king, the Shah, they massacred and they destroyed a lot of people. And so there was little trust left. And so what ended up happening was the Shah fled a few months later. And here's the mistake people make. That revolution didn't bring democracy. Because see, then the religious people, the clerics, the Muslim clerics seized power, and they replaced that flawed monarchy with a rigid theocracy under Islam. And political repression, it didn't end, it intensified. Women lost rights overnight. They were in school and everything, but next day, 91% of the jobs that women could have were over. University classes women could take were over. Music was banned. Dissent became criminal. You get put in the jail for something you said. And so Iran went from being a controlled modernization to an ideological imprisonment. So the people didn't like the Shah. They protested against him. And then these other people moved in, these religious clerics, and it seemed like it got worse. So be careful what you ask for, right? So basically the cure was worse than the disease. So let's fast forward to what we see going on right now in late 2025, 2026. Iran is facing its largest unrest since 1979 when they had the revolution. And this didn't start with ideology. It started with economics. They're struggling over there. Inflation surged. The currency has collapsed. Your little dollars don't mean anything, okay? Or reals, as they call them. People couldn't afford. They can't afford food. They can't afford medicine. And so you got people mad and in the streets protest. They can't feed themselves or their children. What am I working for? They're being sanctioned. And so they turned up and they have political demands of these clerics who believe that it is God who is Allah who has ordained them to rule. And what has the regime done? They responded with force. It is 2026 right now. It is January 16, 2026. According to some of the reports, up to 12,500 people have been unalived. They're shooting live bullets. They're shooting live bullets at their own countrymen. Thousands of people have been arrested, body bags everywhere. This is going on right now. The internet is shut down repeatedly. So they do that all the time so they can hide the violence. And you have some international organizations who trying to document what's going on, but it's hard to do. People can't communicate. The internet's shut down. You see? So at this point, the regime is unstable and it's under strain. So now let's talk about Trump. Let's do it without emotion. We know Iran is our enemy. We know they fund terrorism. We know they don't like us. Clearly, they're not our friend, right? Does it hurt us if this particular regime is removed? No, it's probably a good thing for us Americans. Okay, because guess what happens? Iran sponsors terrorism, and the primary target is us. So just table that for a minute. Now, what's being reported isn't that America wants war tomorrow with Iran. What's being reported is that credible force or the use of force is back on the table. Okay? That's the Wall Street Journal saying that. And Donald Trump has said, hey, let's get some preliminary planning going on. And Let's see what we can do to make this situation good for us. Let's capitalize on this. There could be some potential military options against Iran, including some large-scale airstrikes. I mean, he sent some missiles over there to save them Nigerians who are being unalived because they're Christian. You got a man you got a regime who's killed up to 12,500 of their own people. I'm just saying. But see, here's the difference between Trump and all these other presidents we've had. See, for years, Trump, everybody assumes Iran and all the rest, they assume America's threats are hollow. All right, sanctions, speeches, hesitation, and so that emboldened Tehran, okay, Tehran. America's not going to do anything. They follow rules. Those Americans follow rules. They're not going to do anything. Okay, but now here we are in a situation with a president. They think he's crazy. And so threats of force have become credible again. And so what's happened? Behavior changes. Okay? And regimes pay the price. Trump, he sent a tweet out on, not tweet, he put a post up on his social media page that we stopped talking to those Iranian diplomats. We're not calling them. They trying to, hey man, we need to talk to Trump. They got wind, they about to use force, so they want to talk now. He's like, nah, we're not going to talk to you anymore. So Trump cut him off. You see? Now I want to bring this home. You don't have to like Trump. You don't have to like his mouth. You don't have to like his style. But weakness abroad always costs Black Americans more. Inflation hits our neighborhood first. Wars don't draft politicians' kids. Okay? Economic stability wipes out Black wealth faster than anyone else. So when America loses leverage, we don't get spared, family. Now, understand that geopolitics isn't about loyalty to this man or his party. It's about protecting your future. If America gets weaker, if we have to pay more, if the price of living gets higher, okay, if our adversaries get stronger, we feel it in real life. Okay, and this is not cable news. So yeah, we're gonna try to do something to get these people out of there or stabilize Iran because we want to keep these prices low and keep these people from being a menace to us. I get that. Now let's move on. So we talked about Greenland, we talked about Iran. Now we're gonna talk about Venezuela again. And I'm gonna explain to you guys again why removing Maduro was not just another foreign event. What happened in Venezuela on January 3rd is not some random headline. It's not just internet drama. It was one of the most serious strategic moves the U.S. has made in decades. And it matters a lot more than people have been told. When the U.S. forces took Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, keep in mind, she's older than him. And I'm going to call her the kingmaker, because when you really look into that relationship, she's the G in that relationship. She's the one who made him. I think Maduro was a bus driver or something like that. And she had already been in bed with the narcos or something like that. She'd helped defend. She's a lawyer, by the way. But anyway, they got brought up out of there and brought to New York, and they've been put up on federal charges. That wasn't about ego. That wasn't Trump ego. That wasn't chaos. Okay, it wasn't America wilding out, American president wilding out. It was calculated. For years, the U.S. government labeled Maduro's regime what it believed it was, a narco-terrorist network. Not just some corrupt government, stealing money from the people, right? But a government accused of working hand in hand with these drug traffickers, moving cocaine and all this other stuff, fentanyl to the United States. Maduro was not our friend. You understand? And the United States spent years trying to be nice. Yeah, we need you to stop doing that, Maduro. All the drugs are hurting our people, We're warning you again. We're going to put more sanctions on you, right? And Maduro didn't give a damn because it didn't do anything to stop Venezuela from becoming a major transit route for cocaine and other drugs headed straight for the U.S. market. Okay? He didn't crack down on the traffickers. Those were his homies. Okay? He didn't clean house. He didn't stop the corrupt officials tied to the drug trade getting paid. because they were all in cahoots, apparently. Remember, Trump said that you guys can check this, up to 300,000 Americans die every year. That's a lot. From drugs, that's a lot. I'm going to have to check that. He might just be talking. I know it's a lot, but 300,000? I'm thinking 30,000. But he's saying 300,000, so if Trump's numbers are accurate, why in the hell do you care if we get rid of one of the a government official who is helping facilitate drug traffic to the United States? Why would you care about that? Why is that not in our interest? And let me say this, and I want to talk to my brothers and sisters, black people. Millions of black families know exactly what drugs do when they hit the communities. We know about fentanyl poisoning. We know about gang violence. We know about crack, right? We know about addiction. We know about broken families. We know about all the lost futures of the black people that we knew growing up in the 80s and 90s, because of the drug trade, whether they're using or selling. The neighborhood's already struggling. We got bad schools. We got weak healthcare. We got limited opportunity. And now we getting hit again, this time from drug trade. Like they don't grow that shit. Excuse my language. They don't grow that in our country. They ship it from somewhere else. So when you as a black person hear narco-terrorism and drug trafficking, don't think about it in abstract politics. Think about it in funerals that you've had to attend because of turf wars and gang banging associated with drug trafficking and overdoses. Think about all the people you know incarcerated for drug use or drug selling or drug abuse. Think about the kids growing up without parents and the harm is caused. But see, the story isn't just about drugs. Venezuela sits on some of the largest oil reserves on earth, and oil affects everything. Gas prices, inflation, jobs, shipping costs, manufacturing, and global power. And Venezuela's oil industry collapsed under corruption and mismanagement. But after Maduro's capture, the U.S. moved in and said, well, no, we're going to start selling this oil. we're going to start shipping this Venezuelan crude and negotiate the oil deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And see, that's not random. Okay? It's not random. They had Chevron and some other, I believe it was Chevron and some other countries, oil companies down there. And then the government decided to take over and they booted it out. And so Chevron's like, man, they just took our money, and it's been decades with that. But look, it's also about energy security and national security. When energy prices rise, who feels it first? Working families, black communities, people who already spend a larger share of our income on food and rent. You see? Right? And here's another layer you need to deal with. Maduro didn't operate in isolation. And this is the most crucial part you need to understand. See, Venezuela under his rule aligned itself with China and Russia. These are two powers who openly worked to weaken the United States. Beijing and Moscow have been expanding their footprint all across Latin America. And Venezuela was a major part of the plan. Its oil, its ports, its resources mattered to their global strategy. And when America's adversaries gain leverage in the Western Hemisphere over here on our side of the earth, that's not distant geopolitics. That's pressure on the dollar. That's pressure on trade routes. That's pressure on markets. That's pressure on American stability. You all think it's bad now. You think it's hard to get a job now. That's what you're complaining about right now. It's hard. Everything's hard. Imagine it getting 10 times harder than this. Imagine you not having enough gas to get you to your job, or that same $10 you use to buy some groceries for a couple days, right? Well, shit, maybe a day. You can't get nothing for $10. That $100 you use to buy groceries for a couple days, now you need $1,000 to buy groceries for a couple days because everything's gone up in price. Because our enemies have locked down the oil and squeezed us out. So in order for companies to buy the oil, they got to spend more money and they got to send, and you got to pay for it, but there ain't enough jobs to go around. You see? So now look at what removing Maduro actually did. It hit a regime accused of being tied to drug networks, fueling the fentanyl and cocaine use in the United States. And it shifted Venezuela's political direction, at least temporarily, and it opened the door to oil deals structured around U.S. interests. Why is that a problem? And the other thing is, it sent a clear message to China and Russia and anyone else watching. United States still asserts power in its own backyard, and when security and economic survival online, we're going to do what we have to do. Was it perfect? No. Are there some legal, moral questions? Hell yeah, we sent some troops down there, we killed like 80 people. Damn. And we took the president of another country and his wife in the middle of the night, and now they sitting in a jail in Brooklyn next to P. Diddy. Right? Yeah, there's some moral questions. Yeah, some legal questions, of course. And there'll be legal scholars and historians. They're going to have to sort that out. Absolutely. But to dismiss it as madness, just to say Trump is not calculated, he's just with this chaos, he's off the chain, without acknowledging the decades of indictments against Maduro, the evidence, the failed diplomacy, and the real harm that country and that regime has caused the United States because of its action, that would just be dishonest. And for Black people, you've watched drugs flow in and violence rise and opportunity shrink. Okay? You've watched it happen for years, and you finally have a president who said, nah, we're going to put an end to this dope flooding into the Black community or to American communities. And you got a problem with that. You got a problem with that. This is what you're angry about? Huh? Because see, in my perspective, this fight was in part for your safety and your future. Now, here's the thing. What's at stake? What's really at stake? Bro? What's going on? Why is it that we want to keep Russia away from around us? Hit the like button. All right, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're learning something. If you learn something, let me know. If you learn something, hit the like button. You ain't got to give me no money. Just if you learn something, hit the like button. What's at stake? What's really at stake? Why don't we want Russia in our backyard? Why don't we want Russia getting stronger? Because see, it's obvious. Russia's a nuclear power. And people talk about nuclear war like it's a movie plot. It's not. The UN Secretary General has warned the world is one misunderstanding or miscalculation away from nuclear annihilation. And he's not saying that for drama. When nuclear states start throwing around nuclear language, you're not supposed to clap or panic. You're supposed to understand the stakes. You see? And here's the thing. You got seconds, not days. You understand? And I don't want to alarm anybody, but here's the part the public keeps missing. Nuclear crisis management is built on detection, confirmation, and decision. It happens fast. The U.S. uses missile warning satellites and other sensors to detect launches within seconds worldwide. So what happens, we got satellites keyed in on all these different positions. Russia actually has mobile ICBM launch, I'll call them units. We even, have satellites that can monitor the submarines. And see, here's the thing. The minute something is launched out the water, our satellites can tell not only where it's launched from, or not just the water or land, where it's launched from, but what kind of missile it is. But typically what we do is the major nuclear powers explain or let people know we're going to do this, we're going to do that. North Korea is the only one that doesn't do it. So there's room for that's why they call it a rogue state. Okay? But without going into too much detail, just understand that the technology is incredible. but it doesn't magically make the situation safe. It means the president and the commander chain may be forced into decisions under time and pressure while information is incomplete. Okay, while panic is high and while communication with the other side might not even work the way people assume it will. Okay. It's large, it's layered, it's global, it's fast, it exists because the timeline is brutal. Now, why Trump? Here's the thing. The real danger is miscalculation and weak deterrence and mixed signals. And when adversaries believe America is distracted or divided or unwilling to act, the odds of them taking bigger risks go up. That doesn't mean wars, it doesn't mean, we about to it's gonna pop off right now. Okay. But my thing is, if your argument is Trump is that Trump being successful, well, let me say it like this, family. Russia is looking to attain an advantage by having its missiles strategically placed in locations that box us in. And we want to put our defense systems in places that we can say, no, we know you there, get out of here. Okay? So when you hear serious analysts discuss Russia's nuclear posture and escalation dynamics, that's not internet conspiracy talk. That's mainstream policy discussions driven by the Ukraine war and the broader great power competition. The point for regular Americans is simple, and I want to keep it simple because I don't want to alarm anybody. The more unstable the global environment gets, the more you pay at the pump and at the store and in taxes and in military risk. That hits Black communities hard because we're always the first to feel economic shock. Okay? And so no, this isn't about liking Trump. That's that kid logic. That's that emotional logic. This is about recognizing that nuclear deterrence is not a vibe, it's a posture. And credibility and preventing the other side from thinking they can play in our face, okay, is important. And when you treat everything as personality or emotion, you miss the only thing that matters at this level: stability through strength and clarity. So the unthinkable, and that is nuclear annihilation, never becomes a schedule. Now, here's the thing you need to understand. And I want the white people to come to the front of the room. Where all my white people, there was some white people earlier, they had something to say. I want you to come up here, white people. Come on in. Where all the white people, check in. All my white people, check in. All my Scots, Irish, German descendant, Polish, come on up in here. Come on. See, when Americans hear Russian officials talk about limited nuclear use, most people brush it off as madness. Oh, they're bluffing. And that's a mistake. You see? Because there was a long-time Russian foreign policy strategist who said on Tucker Carlson's broadcast, I believe last night or the night before, he said this out loud, something that most diplomats only hint at, that a limited nuclear strike could be, and I quote, a necessary sin. And he said that Britain and Germany would be the logical first targets. Britain, because that's they want to, they really want to hit Britain, but Germany is so close, they got to deal with them first because Britain and Germany are allies. And that wasn't random. And it wasn't theatrical, it was a message. Now, from Moscow's point of view, the UK and Germany aren't just countries. They're the backbone of the so-called collective West. Somebody type collective West in the chat room. And Britain has been one of the loudest, earliest, and most aggressive supporters of Ukraine, pushing weapons and intelligence and training and sanctions against Russia hard and from the beginning. In Germany, after decades of benefiting from, Russian energy and trade, They just flipped overnight, cutting gas ties, rebuilding its own military, and serving as NATO's logistic hub and bankrolling the war effort against Russia. And so from Russia's perspective, those two countries represent the nerve center of Western pressure and money and weapons and intelligence and political leadership that's making their life hard. You see? And if you want to scare Europe and shake NATO, you don't threaten everybody, you just threaten the anchors. And here's the part the Americans, especially the white Americans, I want you to listen to me, okay? You need to hear this plainly. This is not our family fight. See, a lot of Russians talk, nuclear talk, you think it's insanity, it's coercion. It's designed to terrify the European public and fracture alliances and force voters to pressure their governments to back off. And that strategy has been used before, from Cold War brinksmanship to Putin putting nuclear forces on alert days after invading Ukraine. And when Russian elites name specific countries and talk about thresholds, they're not ranting. They're signaling, and Europe understands that language very well because Europe has lived in that cycle for centuries. Look, Europe's history matters here, okay? And people keep lying about it. Europe is not a peaceful, by nature, it's not peaceful. Europe is a blood-soaked continent, and for hundreds of years, actually thousands of years, European nations have slaughtered each other over borders, over religion, pride, empire, and just old grudges. 2 world wars started because of these Europeans. Colonial violence was exported from Europe, whether we're talking about Portugal, Spain, Great Britain, okay? That's where colonialism came from. And those instincts of these Europeans have never disappeared. They were just frozen under American protection. NATO is the rope that ties the United States to Europe in these unresolved rivalries that they have. It's a multi-defense pact, which means, I'm gonna explain NATO. What it means is someone else's war could become America's war in minutes. And so when Russian politicians openly discuss limited nuclear use and name European capitals, Americans shouldn't be cheering, okay? We shouldn't be picking sides like it's some sort of sports rivalry either. We should be asking one question: how did this pull us in, and why should it? This is where white America needs to let go of the nostalgia. I know that your mama is a Scots-Irish. I know that your great-granddaddy on twice removed is of German descent. I get that, okay? And see, the only thing keeping America, you white Americans emotionally tied to Europe is that ancestry. Irish, German, Polish, English bloodlines. I get it. That people still confuse that with loyalty. But Europe does not see you all as Europeans, and they never have. To them, you're Americans first and expendable second. And when things go wrong, they don't see you as cousins, they see you as manpower. And so when Trump signals that America is rethinking NATO obligations, some people scream, oh, betrayal, or we're making enemies out of our allies. But there's another way to read it. We're creating distance from liabilities. It's the same way you distance yourself from a friend who keeps starting fights and escalating beef and then calling you up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, asking you to come through with the strap. You understand? That's what it is. You can share history. You can even care. And you can say, I'm not, but the thing is, I'm not dying. Why do we need to die about that mess? See, America's house is in the Western Hemisphere. We don't need to burn it down because Europe refuses to resolve its own old demons. Look, man, the public never sees the full picture. You don't see classified readiness levels and targeting doctrines and back channel warnings or which systems are closer to hair trigger status. All right? You don't see how fast escalation can happen and how thin the margin for error really is. So when Russia links elites talk about lowering nuclear thresholds or naming specific countries. Don't treat it like some social media noise. Treat it like pressure, messaging meant to shape Western decision making. And history shows this pattern clearly. Russia uses escalation talk to test resolve and split allegiances and force hesitation. And we don't want them to have that leverage over us. And that's why we want to lock down Greenland, get their butts up out of Venezuela so they can talk all they want to talk from over there. Because we got this over here locked down. And if you do something to us, it's on. Bottom line is America's staying out of Europe's fire. We don't want no part of their business. It's been long enough. And we're recognizing who's escalating. We recognizing who's reckless. And they're trying to drag us into these centuries-old conflicts. And look, this is not about being isolated. And I get people have these nostalgic feelings about Europe, and I'm talking to the white Americans, right? But that's not our fight. And the only reason white Americans instinctively side with Europe is because of that identity nostalgia. Your last name, the story your grandmother told you, a flag you've never lived under. The emotional attachment is doing real damage to how Americans think about foreign policy. Europeans do not see you as Europeans, and they won't, and they never have. You're an American, you're unsophisticated, you're loud, you're disposable. You're useful when the shooting starts. And you're embarrassing when it stops. Don't romanticize that. They don't respect you, and they absolutely do not feel obligated to bleed for you. And the way they won't even help pay for their own defense. They want to use us. But they expect you to bleed for them. They expect you to pay for them. And yet every time Europe escalates a conflict, white Americans line up emotionally like it's a family reunion instead of a geopolitical trap. They don't like you. You all are no more European than I am African. The Africans don't like foundational Black Americans, and that's been a big thing on the internet over the past 4 or 5 years, and Europeans don't like you all. If you want proof that Europe will drag America into these wars and then move on like nothing, look at World War I. It's the clearest example. It began as a European blood feud between royal families and a border dispute and nationalism and pride and old grudges colliding. And the U.S. stayed neutral, okay, because we knew exactly what it was about. From 1914 to 1917, we was like, nah, we good. We're going to practice what's called some isolationism. While Europe is over there tearing themselves apart again. America didn't want that war. America didn't start that war, and America didn't benefit from that war. But when Britain and France began losing control, right, of the monster they created, then they called us. And guess what happened? We came in late and we paid the heaviest price. 116,000 Americans died. 116,000 American men died. More than 200,000 were wounded. And then we got left with a massive financial hit. They just threw American troops into a trench. And this was an ugly war back then. There's no drones. You were the drone. You and your little musket / rifle were the drone. And this warfare was designed by European generals, and they had very little respect for their men. And what happened after the war? Europe ignored American leadership. They rejected meaningful enforcement of peace, and they punished the Germany into desperation. And within 20 years, they were back at war again. That's how we ended up with World War II. Same continent, same grudges, same arrogance, same result. That's not ancient history. That's pattern recognition. So here's the thing. When Russian officials talk about this limited war, and they start talking about Britain and Germany, y'all better take it seriously. Russia isn't threatening Kansas. They're not threatening Ohio. They're threatening other European power centers. The same countries that keep pushing the United States to bankroll them and backstop them in their European security theater. And then you got Britain plays this moral crusader and they hide behind American firepower. And Germany plays this economic giant while they're outsourcing their security to NATO. And so from Moscow's perspective, those two countries are the engines of escalation. If you want to fracture NATO psychologically, you don't threaten everyone, you just threaten them too. So a lot of this Russian nuclear talk is coercion. You know, it's not insanity. They're trying to get the same thing Trump's doing. He's just playing the game they playing. It's meant to intimidate these European folks publicly and make them come to some sort of agreement. But that doesn't make it harmless. Now, again, NATO, our allies, our so-called European allies. These people are not our friends. Okay, they're not our friends. Because see, if nuclear war starts in Europe, it doesn't stay in Europe. So when Donald Trump signals that America needs to rethink NATO, and you all start talking about scam and say, oh, betraying, you're stupid. You're not thinking. Europe can't even fully protect itself, much less deal with us if we decide to take Greenland. But we need to get our priorities straight. That's what we need to do. We need to get our priorities straight. And so why Trump's posture makes people uncomfortable? It forces Americans, especially white Americans, to confront an identity they've been clinging to, that Europe itself abandoned a long time ago. America is not Europe. Europe's wars are not America's destiny, and America is not Europe's emergency contact. And we got our own house to protect, family. That's what I need you to understand. We have our own house to protect. And I want each and every American listening to this broadcast, black, white, or whatever, to understand that that's where I'm coming from. And that's where you should be coming from, because it's in the interest of the United States to do so, to protect ourselves. That being the case, most of you all don't understand what Donald Trump is doing. I'm not saying I'm fully abreast of what he's doing, but I recognize the moves. Now, as I said at the top of the broadcast, we need to pray for Donald Trump. And I hope I've shed a little light on my perspective as to why. Now, I'm going to read these super chats. And let's see if we got a couple of cash apps going on. We got 12 super chats. Let's see if we got any cash apps in here. I want to thank you all for hanging with me. I know this has been a complicated subject, but I was trying to put it down where the cows can eat it, so to speak. I wanted everybody to understand, and I try to, I'm not here trying to give a lesson to, a bunch of, PhDs. I'm just trying to talk to the public so the public can understand that we need to give our president a little grace. And hopefully if you recognize, if we can build some trust and say, hey, well, this is what he's doing, if this is what he's doing, then maybe some of the other stuff he's doing makes sense too, and I just don't understand. But thank you all so much. Let's go ahead and read these super chats. We got 14 super chats. Maybe we'll get to 15 before I finish reading. We can get to 15, that's good. But again, you don't owe me anything. Let me go ahead and say that right now. You don't owe me anything. My whole point is that I want you to learn something. And if you learn something, that's great. But if you do learn something, I should earn something. That's it. But you don't owe me anything. I want to work for everything that I get. Now, I do ask that you all hit the subscribe button. That's free. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to pay for that. And I certainly would appreciate if you would hit the like button. I am marching towards 100,000. And I'd like to get to 100,000 sometime in the next few months. And I'm about, I believe, 30 people short of 91,000. So if 30 people could hit the like button, that would be awesome. I'm sorry, 30 people could hit the subscribe button. That would be awesome. Shout out to everybody who's watching this on the replay. I hope you guys would subscribe to the channel and hit the like button also. And the other thing I do before I start reading these super chats, you guys, if you've been involved in a motor vehicle accident, feel free to contact me at 713-229-0770. Of course, I'm not making a lot of money on the internet. And this is my primary day job, but I spend a lot of time developing these broadcasts for you guys. So I hope you guys appreciate that. But also, if you've been in a car accident, I'm licensed in multiple states. Just go ahead and hit me up at 713-229-0770. Now, I'm not finished. I got some more to say. But I want to thank the people. Fire for Effect, thank you for the $9.99 super sticker. Urban Eagle, thank you for the $5 super sticker. We got 14 super chats. Like I said, we might get to 15. That'll be cool. That'll be clean. Faquan, he says, thank you for the $5 super sticker. Jeffrey Rice, you too. Welcome to the membership. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Timothy Bright at 7064, he could start a war if he's being a dictator. He could start a war if he's being a dictator. Thank you so much, Timothy Bright. I voted for Trump for his policies. He's doing too much. Thank you so much. Faquan also says super sticker. Thank you for that. Cool E23. I'm currently in Cebu, PH. The locals here are fans of Trump for capturing Maduro and standing up to China. They despise China here. They believe if it wasn't for us, China would take over the Philippines. They probably would. You know, and in America, people understand America's the only one that keeps all these bad guys at bay because we're not talking nice to them. You see? My man got a lot of alphabets. Yahshua, thank you for all praises to the Most High. Yahshua, thank you, Uncle Blizzard. No problem, man. Thank you so much. Red Sidman, good looking out. Thank you so much. And for that, check DARPA website if you ever doubted USA. Appreciate you. Faquan, thank you for the $5 super sticker. And Big J73, brilliant topic, fam. People really just don't understand how important this broadcast was tonight. The only thing they see is that Trump is the bad guy instead of understanding that he's actually protecting us. Yeah, like, why would you root against the dude who's protecting you from the people who want to unalive you? That just doesn't make sense. You don't have to like, it's not an emotional decision that you should make. You know, that's like rooting against the airplane pilot that's flying your plane because you don't like him. It don't make sense, man. You got to do better. All right, we got 15 super chats. Maybe we'll get 16 before I finish. I have more to say now, but I just want to go ahead and get you all out the way because you all are my very special guests. You learned something. And I'm sure there are other people out there to learn something. I appreciate you all too. Again, you don't owe me anything. Okay, the Lord has blessed me very well. I appreciate that. However, by, helping me understand that you learned something, it lets me know, it keeps me focused and lets me know what direction I should go in. Because here's the thing. A lot of people follow the algorithm. A lot of people will jump on the latest story and they'll just blab off for a couple of hours and talk about things. But here on my page, I try to teach you all. You learn something about World War II. You learned something about the importance of Greenland today. We talked about the relationship between China and Russia. We talked about the history of Iran, right? We talked about Venezuela. We talked extensively about, why Greenland is important. So now you have answers to this big confusing world. And I'm gonna say this. Look, man. Let me tell you something. I wish I could get one of my special guests in here. Let me let me call somebody real quick. You guys hang it. I got a special guest I'm going to contact. Hopefully my special guest will answer the phone. Sometimes my special guest doesn't answer the phone because he has more important things to do than entertain me. But I'm going to see if I can get him on the phone right quick, and we'll see. I'm going to let you know why my true inspiration for answering this question, and largely it has to do with the fact that there are a lot of scared people out there. And so let me see if I can, he's busy, very, very special guest. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Let me see if I can get him to answer the phone, the guest that is. Let me know if you can, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oops. Hello. Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you. All right. Can you all hear my special guest? This is my special guest. His name is Dennis A. Spurling. Can y'all hear? Let me know if you can. You hear me, son?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Can you all hear my special guest? This is my young son, Dennis. Let me know if y'all can hear me. Keep talking real quick, because I had to. Yeah, I'm trying to get him. If Dennis, you drunk on the cool breeze? Okay, so I had a conversation the other day with my oldest son. This is him. What did you tell me about your recent experience with TikTok?
Lately it's been politics have been like become really a big part of social media, and like nearly every video I see is like politics related.
And it was kind of causing you some anxiety? Is that fair to say?
Yes, it was distracting me a bit.
Okay, you mind sharing with the audience why it was distracting?
Because it was just like, since I know it's like politics, it's a real issues that happen, and it's not like other social media like trends and stuff. It's like actual big issues.
Not that fun stuff, the fun stuff where you get to talk about, life and, and the latest dance and stuff like that, right? It was very serious stuff, right?
Yes.
And so you and I actually sat down and talked about it a little bit. And what did if you don't mind recounting the conversation, what was my response to you, generally speaking? Oh, I think are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yeah,
sorry.
do you recall my response to you when I kind of began to explain reading what Donald Trump is doing and reading the politics, as we see them play out?
Yes, I do.
Well, go ahead, if you don't mind. Please share it with the audience, if you don't mind.
Like you said that it's not taking it like exactly what's actually being said.
And what about when I spoke specifically about Greenland? Remember that conversation I had with you about Greenland and what Donald Trump is actually doing with Greenland, related to what I consider the negotiation technique?
Yes.
Well, go ahead and share it with the audience. I'd like to know if you picked up, because if you picked up, and I pretty much told these folks the same thing, then I know they did. What do you tell us what you thought, what you developed?
You said that Donald Trump, he went for an extreme so that they could feel like putting troops of their own in Greenland would be like the bare minimum or something like that.
Right. So it was basically a negotiation technique. He went to the extreme, and then instead of them sitting around doing nothing, they had to do something. And so that's pretty much it. And a lot of people are afraid too, because they're not able to read. And now, of course, there's always, you know how daddy feels. I don't think much of the human animal, generally speaking. And I feel as though the same way the Bible sees it, we're very complicated, beautiful, yet savage creatures. And there's always a chance of violence. But, I recognize this for what it is. And it seems to be not necessarily an escalation of violence, but rather a negotiation technique so we can get what we want. But man, I was inspired to talk to my audience tonight, and I want to thank you for inspiring me, son, because I know there's a lot of folks out there that might be confused or misunderstanding or stressed out, and because of what we see happening. It happened to me too. I was a young man. I explained that. But thank you, son. I'll let you get back to your engineering homework. You have a great evening, sir. Respectfully. All right. Talk to you later. All right. I don't know if you guys could hear that. Shout out to my son, Dennis Spurling, busy working on his finals. Did you all hear that? Anybody, if y'all could hear that, hit the number 1. But I don't know if y'all heard that conversation clearly. But yeah, so that's pretty much what motivates. A lot of people who are anxious, they see what's going on, and it makes them nervous. And I wanted to try to, talk about that topic. When I was a young boy growing up, my goodness, man, it's 1980s. AIDS came out and scared everybody. I'm still a kid, but I'm scared too. They told us it's a virus, like a flu or something, right? We don't know how people catch it. So you could be in the average person's mind, you could catch it from the air, and then, it didn't help because a year later, all our hopes and dreams blew up in the Challenger explosion. And, so it's like we didn't really have people to explain to us what's really going on. And of course, there's always the Cold War. So there was always an imminent threat of death and destruction, and this is the existence that we grew up in. So anyway, that was my motivation. So thank you for Big J. I appreciate you. This is complicated stuff, and I try to break it down so people could understand on very human terms. But thank you so much. Daywalker, as a prior U.S. Marine officer, I must say you broke this stuff down fantastically. Thanks for what you do. Simplify to your Marine family members. Thank you so much. And thank you for your service, Daywalker 07. All right, we got 16 super chats. It'd be great to get 17. Well, let's try to get 20. Let's be ambitious. If we can get 20 super chats before I finish, or maybe somebody will give it after the broadcast end, but only if you learn something. I don't want you to give me anything if you didn't learn. I got to work harder. But thank you so much, Lisa. Lisa Gardner. Lisa Hawgardner. You explained it so well. Thanks, Professor. Thank you so much, beautiful. I appreciate you. Let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. We didn't get any cash out, but it's all good in the hood. Look, family, as I started this broadcast off, I said something very simple. I just said, pray for him. And whether you voted for Donald Trump, whether you voted for him or not, whether you like his tone or not, whether he fits your idea of a polished leader or not, Donald Trump is the president of the United States. Okay? And that's it. And that fact is not going to change for at least another 3 or 4 years unless, somebody takes over his position. Now, in the moments like this, when the world is unstable, when war is not theoretical but possible, the worst thing Americans can do is tear down their own command in public. And so my message is simple. Don't curse the man out. Don't mock the man. Don't undermine him. And of course, you're going to say a few things. I get it. But what I'm also doing is say, pray. Pray for him. Pray for him, because leadership at this level, at the highest heights, okay, at those high heights, is bigger than personality. It's about burden. It's about decisions and making it that affect millions of lives. It's about consequences most of us never would have to carry. And for those who believe in scripture, understand this: God has never limited himself to polite instruments. If you read the Old Testament honestly, you'll see clearly when God confronts evil, he often uses men who are controversial. Shout out to Faquan. Got 17 super chats. Kings, warriors, rulers, the ones who didn't fit expectations of the people but were used anyway. Not because they were perfect, but because they were willing to act. And some of you are judging Donald Trump emotionally. You don't like him. I get it. But how he makes you feel about and how he speaks, right? And how uncomfortable that makes you. That's why you don't like him. But God doesn't choose his instruments based on your comfort. He chooses them based on his purpose. And here's the part Americans across every background need to hear. When you publicly humiliate your own president, you don't weaken him, you just weaken the country. You make us look bad. And the rest of the world is watching. The adversaries are watching. Now you can do it. You got the Second Amendment right to do it. But our adversaries will exploit that and they will exacerbate that division. You had a whole system set up where you had folk coming in on the internet from other countries exacerbating issues. Come to find out, even the gender war that's existed between Black American men and women was ginned up by folks in India who capitalized on that. And now that they force these people to show their identity and location on Twitter, now we're finding out. I'm just saying. So when you out there publicly, and there's always going to be room for criticism. I'm not saying you shouldn't critique things, but when you start calling man stupid and crazy and all that stuff, and you just got this constant drum roll, and you begin to undermine the president's credibility, and that doesn't make you virtuous. It makes America look uncertain. And uncertainty invites escalation, and that's a danger, especially when we're this close to the unspeakable. When the president's or any leader's authority is constantly questioned at home, he's forced to overcorrect abroad to prove his resolve and to protect strength and to make moves louder than necessary just to be taken seriously. Why do you think he sent all those people to Minnesota? The local government told these people, yeah, get on out there and protest. And then Trump, he escalated. Now he's talking about sending the military in. So if you care about peace, if you care about American lives, if you care about keeping wars from our cities, then you should want your president to walk into every negotiation, every confrontation, every crisis with the full weight of the nation behind him, especially when it's in your interest. And that doesn't mean blind loyalty. It means wisdom. And let's talk plainly to every community. To Black Americans, first, we know what it looks like when the system collapses and chaos fills the gaps. You can look at Chicago for that. We know the cost of instability, and we know what happens when power vacuums open and violence follows. To white Americans, stop confusing your European ancestry with allegiance. You're Americans first. Your security does not depend on Europe's pride or your old world grudges. To the rest, to the Hispanics and every other immigrant family, America's strength is the reason your children have the opportunity here that they didn't have in your countries of origin. And a weak America doesn't protect anyone. No matter who you are, a fractured America is dangerous. So I say pray for the president. And here's the prayer I ask you to pray for. Pray for his wisdom. Pray for his restraint. Pray for his discernment. Pray that he chooses paths that protect American lives without unnecessary bloodshed. You don't have to like the man to do that. You don't have to agree with him to pray for him in that regard. You just need to understand the stakes, because in times like this, unity is not about politics, it's about survival. The thing you all need to understand is this: history shows us that nations fall faster from internal division than from external enemies. And so stop calling this man name. Matter of fact, I want you all to start putting aside these political issues that we having and beefing with each other over who you voted for because you like the donkey and you like the elephant. You got families breaking up because of their political beliefs. I hope and pray that you all yourself will ask for wisdom and discernment, because for a very long time, we've been tearing ourselves apart. A very long time, America has been tearing itself apart at the seams because of political division and ideology. America's not perfect, but America does need steady hands at the wheel, and we need not to have the chaos that we have going on politically. Now, I want to talk specifically to Black people. I want you to hear me very carefully. You're a special people. You're my people. I'm talking to my foundational Black American brothers and sisters. God loves you. Do you know that? You need to pray for Donald Trump, even if you don't like him. Because we're not just any group of people. We're the people with a proven relationship with the Most High. The Bible makes something very clear. God chooses people, not just individuals. And when he chooses a people, their prayers carry weight. Now I'm going to give you a little scripture. Deuteronomy 7:6, King James Version. For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. And let's talk about why this matters and why Black people uniquely fit a biblical pattern that no other group in modern history can honestly claim. God told Abraham exactly what would happen to his seed. And he said unto Abraham, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall serve and shall afflict them for 400 years. That is mighty peculiar. Genesis 15:13. What does that mean? That means the people taken to a foreign land, not theirs, enslaved, afflicted for 400 years. That's not a metaphor. That's not even vague. It's not even symbolic. There's no other people in recorded history that fits that description the way foundational Black Americans do. Captured, transported, enslaved, stripped of our language, culture, name, and identity, yet preserved by the grace of God. And God didn't just speak about the captivity, he spoke about deliverance. And also, and this is Genesis 15:14, and also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterwards shall they come out with great substance. Read it again. Let's read it. Let me speak. Let me update the language. God said the nation that enslaved them would be judged, and the people who were enslaved would come out with substance. Let the church say substance. Somebody type substance in the chat room. So from slavery to survival, from survival to rights, from rights to wealth, culture, and global influence. That's us. That didn't happen by accident. That happened because God heard us. God heard your little old grandmother from Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Arkansas, East Texas, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Baltimore. Your God heard those prayers that she cast out over her children and her children's children and her husband and the men folk in her family. That's why we still here. Ain't nothing I like more than a praying woman. I'm gonna tell you that now. My grandma used to pray. She's a praying woman. And I'm still living off some of them prayers. And so are my children and my family. That's why I'm so blessed. But let's continue. Church, I need you to turn to Exodus 3:7. I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. God hears our cries. I ain't talking about everybody. I'm talking about the people afflicted. I'm talking about those people who are in that place for 400 years. I'm talking about you. And that's why our prayers matter differently, my brothers and sisters. Now, here's a responsibility that comes with that truth, to having a direct line with God like that. The chosen people don't get to be reckless with their words. Chosen people don't curse authority and then expect peace. Chosen people understand spiritual posture. And the Bible commands us at 1 Timothy 2:1 and 2, I exhort therefore that first of all supplications, prayers, and intercessions and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings and for all that are in authority. That instruction is not about liking a ruler. It's about protecting the people who live under the consequences of leadership. And foundational Black American people, my people, always feel those consequences first. And that's why we don't put reckless negativity into the atmosphere. And that's not who we are, and it's never been who we are. We don't destroy with our mouths what we transform. And the Bible warns us about that. Thou shalt not speak evil of the ruler of thy people. Exodus 22 and 28. I'm giving you chapter and verse. Go fight your Bible. Don't fight me. You don't like what I'm saying? Go be mad at God. Words have power. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. And they love it, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. That's Proverbs 18 and 21. Y'all know that. Can the church say amen? You can't speak life into a man. Ladies, you can't speak life into a woman if you constantly speaking negative to them. The power of life and death is in the tongue. We know that. We would have never survived if we were people who were speaking curses. We survive by turning pain into praise. We turn sorrow into soul music. We turn scraps into soul food. We turn bondage into faith, culture, and resilience. That's our inheritance. And here's the final truth. There's too much blood on this nation's ledger for others to carry it spiritually. White people can't do what we do. I'm just going to tell you, white folk, you cannot do what Black Americans can do. You cannot do what foundational Black Americans can do. Mexicans, you can't do it either. You did too much slaughter. You killed too many Native Americans. No other group of people on this planet can do what we do. Africans, you can't do it either because you helped participate in selling us into slavery and you've been slaughtering your own people since then. Nobody else can do what we do. You just got too much blood on your hands. And right here in this nation, it's too much blood on your hands to carry this level of spirituality. Too much history, too much injustice, too little repentance. And if Black people don't pray for America, nobody else's prayers will cover the same way. And that doesn't mean we stop resting. We are resting. And we're going to keep resting. I hope you got your feet up on the couch right now or laying in your bed. Ladies, I hope you got your bonnets on your head right now. Fellas, I hope you're chillaxing right now after a long day. But again, it doesn't mean we're going to stop resting. It means while we rest, we intercede. Because God has always moved history when we pray. And so I'm saying it one last time. You don't have to like any of your leaders. Your mayor, your governor, you don't have to like any of them. You don't have to agree with any of them. But as people chosen to preserve and heard by God, we must pray for all of our leaders, because when we pray, chains move. When we pray, nations shift. And when we pray, our God, the Most High God, responds. But and America needs a lot of prayer right now. God bless you all. I love you. I appreciate everybody for coming through. Thank you so much. This is Uncle D, and I'm out.
In the Spurling podcast, hit the like button, subscribe.